Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board, please call roll.
Arancibia,
Present.
Paul,
Here.
Segura,
Here.
Solis,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Aguirre,
Here.
Adamos.
Present.
Okay. We'll now hold a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. For the moment of silence, if we could please keep in mind we just had a milestone of 500 deaths in our country because of COVID, and a lot of those are community members. And for the passing of a giant, Larry Bassa, an activist, artist, volunteer, leader, change maker. Larry made a difference in San Diego and California with Chicano, the work he did, and he's sort of going to be missed. And just if we could remember him as well. So we'll do a moment of silence for a few seconds, and I'll lead the pledge. Thank you. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The board met in closed session, proceeding this meeting to discuss the following issues. 1, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, government code section 54957. 2, conference of legal counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of government code section 54956.9. And 3, conference of labor negotiator, government code section 54957.6. The board took no reportable action. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the February 22nd, 2021 regular board meeting with the changes that the board will first consider board agenda items K6 and K7 after the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Adamos,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so then we'll move to K6, correct?
Oh, no, that was after the consent agenda. You can go ahead and do the presentations, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The board is very pleased to recognize the Mustang Robotics team. There they are, leaders, and the team from Otay Ranch High School for winning the International Robotics Honor Society Service Award Challenge. This award was received from the 10-episode Mustang Robotics Alumni Symposium series that the team hosted on Twitch and then posted on YouTube. This series was to help students learn about different careers and college and school opportunities since they were unable to meet with recruiters and professionals due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The team not only received the Online Challenge Award for Service Trophy, but they received an automatic entry for this season's VEX World Championships. We are very proud of the leadership and the hard work of all the students on this team, and we are happy to recognize the coach, Mr. Chad Pearson, and all the Mustang Robotic team members for this incredible award. Would somebody like to comment on that? Do we have some, the coach?
Yes, of course.
available?
Thank you for the recognition. The students in my club are thrilled right now because even though we're all trapped in our bedrooms, as you can see, I'm in one of mine, we were able to get together and find a pathway through somehow adventuring in engineering and robotics without actually ever touching it or even going to my classroom. And what we did was the award is associated with a organization called the International Robotics Honor Society. It's part of VEX Robotics, and it's actually the elite portion of the VEX Robotics program. And we're honored to be the only after-school club that's part of that organization. We have our own chapter. And so this really is an incredible moment, not only for our school, but I would say for the VEX program in our district to have one of our teams recognized at this level. It would be considered a world championship banner. So I'm incredibly proud of my students.
Thank you, Coach. That's really well done. Any board members like to comment? Superintendent? Student trustee Adamos, go ahead.
I would like to extend my personal congratulations. I know how hard it is to really be learning in a distance learning environment, and to have such an accomplishment like that is also something you should be extremely proud of. Thank you and your students for taking the time to, invest in their passion for engineering and math, and for truly persevering through this. I deeply appreciate it, and for our district as well, we're also really proud.
Great.
Thank you. I think I was prepped to hear all the thank yous from the adults, but not from a student. Thank you so much. That was incredibly meaningful. Incredibly meaningful. Thank you.
Let me go to Mr. Julio Higuera, please.
Good evening, Board President Segura, board members, and Dr. Aguirre. My name is Jesus Leo Ulloa. I have the honor to serve as the STEAM Programs Coordinator. And I just want to add that during these difficult times, the robotics coaches across our schools, VEX Robotics and FIRST Robotics, they had kept the engagement with the students. So with that said, let me put on the list too. Mustang Robotics made it big, but at the same time, we have another team from San Isidro High School that's Cougar Bots, number 8301B. And they also were finalists on a different online challenge, which is called the Promote Award. They were finalists, and they did an amazing video about what they do at their school, and they had to keep working on it. Also, this is first FRC robotics season, and we have some of our students and teachers working hard in a distance learning mode to keep the engagement there. So on behalf of the STEAM world, I want to send kudos to all the VEX and FIRST Robotics coaches for keeping the engagement with the students. And also thank you to Coach Amaro for keeping us all together and engaged. And we appreciate the recognition. Coach, person, go Mustangs.
Thank you, sir. I know you have one of the premier STEM programs and STEAM programs in California, if not the country. And I know you put a lot of work into that, and I participated with you on several ventures, as you know, and I look forward to the day when we can do that again. And so congratulations and thank you. Let's go to Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, President Segura. Likewise, Mr. Pearson, I want to extend our congratulations on behalf of all of us here at the district. We're all experimenting with new ways of honoring our students and our programs. So thank you for working with us to do this virtually. It doesn't in any way impact all the achievements of the group, and we definitely want to recognize the hard work that you and your the team, the students, everybody put into this for VEX Robotics. Great work all around, and thank you, Mr. Ulloa, for helping to coordinate this team program.
Okay, let's go to I don't know who to click first, but I'll go down the list. Vice President Solis.
Thank you, President Segura. Yeah, just quick, I just wanted to say congratulations, good work. This shows we have great educators and great students in our district, so keep up the great work, and thank you for doing such a great job.
Trustee Tarantino.
Thank you, President Segura. I just wanted to add my thanks, Coach, for sticking with it in very difficult times. You know, how you do robotics virtually is kind of a mystery to me, but absolutely you found a way, and you brought it home again. I think you were up, the the Mustang robotics team won something last year too, if I'm not mistaken.
We tend to have a program that achieves at very high levels consistently. So that's what we shoot for, is consistency. We don't have to be the very best, but we do have to have an incredible fun time learning something that we can take with us as we go on the adventure of the rest of our lives. And so for my students, we figured out a way to try to achieve, and we ended up winning by just trying to get to a point of feeling good about what we were trying to do. And Frank, thank you for always being part of robotics. You come in that door sometimes very early in the morning with a cup of coffee to watch, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, the operative word is with a cup of coffee or more.
Yes.
And one last thing, I'd like to also thank you and all of the coaches of the robotics teams throughout our district for providing an opportunity to connect kids to school. And these kids may not have been connected in any other aspect of the school program. So thank you for reaching out to these kids and making them feel part of the school and proud of their accomplishments. Thank you, thank you. That's all I have, President Segura.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to say he's right. It was really hard at the beginning because the students actually came to me, and there's 30 kids in my club, and they all kind of looked at me like, what are we going to do? We're stuck. We don't get to play with the robot. And I was actually holding the meeting to say, I'm not sure what we get to do with that little bit of remorse. And the students actually just made me have to find something we could do together that allowed us to feel like we were still like cohesive and brought together by a common bond. So it was incredibly difficult at the beginning. And the kids got through some struggles. We're not video coordinators. We're not people who put things on YouTube. We're not posters, Twitchers, or anything like that. And so we had to kind of go from this engineering, hands-on kind of constructive thought pattern to an entirely different world. And not only, guys, did we do it, but I have a lot of teachers at Otay Ranch High School who reached out and helped us with a lot of the different ideas. So shouts out to all the staff who helped me on campus kind of organize and get us to be in a good direction.
Thank you. Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura. And yes, I would like to also say thank you. And you've proven the resiliency of our community by doing all of this and doing it in a way that's collaborative. I know that I've been at Otay Ranch for other events, and walking across campus have passed the classrooms late in the evening where you and other staff and volunteers and students have been so excited and engaged in the work. It really speaks to the quality of people that work here at Sweetwater and all the engagement. And I agree, Desiree Adamos is very articulate in how she spoke to you. I thought that was wonderful too, and what a testimony to teachers and to the staff. Thank you also, Jesus. You've done great work in supporting the robotics, and we really appreciate it. So I just wanted to say thank you personally. Well done.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Dr. Arancibia.
I just wanted to congratulate the students and the instructors and the coordinators for this. I mean, the district is you. You make the district. And one of the things I'm really trying to highlight is this great work that you're doing is the district. And I think we have to always remember that effort that you're putting in, it's being seen. And this is what makes Sweetwater a great district. And I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I'm really thankful that you've been able to work collaboratively to make sure that the students are engaged. And students, I'm going to congratulate and say thank you to you, because you're proving kind of all the naysayers about online education wrong, in the sense that you're doing that great work, you're committed to it. And we all know that we're trying and it's hard, but you've made it work in a way that nobody thought possible. So both instructors and coordinators across the district, I just want to say you're what makes the district great. And please never forget that we are so indebted to you for the efforts that you put in. And this is just a hearty congratulations to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Arancibia. Is there anybody else? I can't see. Ms. Principal Peralta, go ahead.
On behalf of the Otay Ranch High students and community, we would like to thank all of you for your very kind words to our students and to our staff and to our advisor and teacher, Mr. Chad Pearson. It really matters that our students are recognized for their hard work and our staff is recognized for their hard work. So thank you very much for recognizing them tonight.
You're welcome. I have one question. And please excuse me if I missed it. Is there a video that we have for this that event, or what happened, or
So what the event itself is posted on YouTube, and if you go to Mustang Robotics Symposium series, there'll be links to 10 individual hour-long interactions that I have with alumni that came from Otay Ranch High School who participated in our club, students who have gone to MIT, worked for JPL, lots of students who are in their first and second and third year at maybe UCSD. We have engineering students, electrical. It's an amazing aspect to be able to take something that's 10 years old and kind of go back and see where the students who started when the club was really just 6 or 10 kids building it, and where those kids have ended up, because where we're at now, organized, ready to go. We have everything clicking like it's a set of gears and a chain now. It's really incredible to be able to bring back some of that information and be able to give the kids some ideas about, hey, here's what happens your first year when you're a freshman at UCSD. Here's how you reach out and find clubs and friends and different aspects and parts. So what we were rewarded for was a community-based reached out awareness video program that we created that we shared with others. And during the actual filming, it was really neat because we did get kids who were attempting to watch from China, but China wasn't exactly, we have a sister team there we communicate with, and they don't really like Twitch. And so they had to watch it later on YouTube. But we did have teams in the Midwest who stayed up and phoned in questions or wrote in questions, and we were able to answer those questions with the kid that I was interviewing. So for myself, it was an honor just to have those kids come back and feel like they wanted to participate in that interview, because what they were sharing with my group of kids that was watching was, this is the future where you can take this. Again, we didn't get to play with the parts yet, but we did get to talk about how this can take us and walk us through to an aspect of a career and a job. And some of the paychecks my kids are making now, it's an incredible thing to hear what the kids can do with a few years of college and a lot of motivation. So I thank you all for your time tonight, and I expect to see you all at a VEX Robotics event as we get back into live action here. I see some smiles, and we'll see that live.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Jesus, did you want to add something else, sir?
I just want to add that, if you want to find the location of all these videos, you can, hopefully you have received the Engage in STEAM newsletter. So
yes.
Scroll down and you're going to find that. So you will be amazed. One of the things that is very interesting is that those videos are not long. So, and you get to see kids that were our kids 4 years ago. So where are they now? Shows the hard work that these teachers are putting on. So Engage in STEAM newsletter, scroll down and you'll find the links over there. Thank you.
I just retired, so I have time to do that now. So I will definitely check that out, sir.
And I have the links from Mr. Pearson for this YouTube series, so I'll send that to all the board members.
Thank you.
You guys are more than welcome to. We have a website that's what Ms. Vecido was showing us earlier, and the website has a little bit more information and some aspects about our team's history and stuff like that. So please feel like you can go to Mustang Robotics 507 and check that out also.
Thank you. And maybe if possible, Dr. Getty, if it's not already, there's not already a link on our website that helps celebrate this, and that'd be great, so that I know we're doing better at pointing out the great work that happens at Sweetwater, and this would be another great instance. So thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody for participating in this, and we'll move on. With that, we'll now have an update from our interim superintendent, Dr. Getty.
Thank you, President Segura. My update for this evening is rather brief, but very important. Our team has had a singular focus around advocacy for vaccines for the Sweetwater team. We've been advocating at the county level. We've been advocating with the different municipalities, City of San Diego, City of Chula Vista, City of Imperial Beach, City of National City, as well as unincorporated areas, advocating with our county board of supervisors, advocating with our county legislators, advocating anywhere and everywhere to ensure that we are supporting Team Sweetwater so that all of our employees can have timely access to vaccines to help us lead the way out of this COVID-19 pandemic that we've all been in. So we hear news that continues to change rather rapidly, and it evolves constantly. But our team has been, again, focused on preparing us for what eventually comes next. So as we start seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, we understand that a key factor and a key variable to be able to lead us out of this tunnel are those vaccines, and they are very critical. So we continue to advocate, we continue to monitor, and all this we are doing to ensure that we're supporting all of our employees here in our district and our feeder districts. We're one community with all of our feeder districts. So again, just advocacy is the word with our team. And we want to make sure that we continue to support all of our teams so we can be ready, be prepared for that eventuality once we can reach a point where we can all be vaccinated. So that's my update. Again, the focus has been on advocacy for this prior to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we will now have an update from our student board representative, Ms. Debbie.
Good evening. First, I would like to announce excitedly that in the upcoming weeks, Dr. Gomez, Mr. Dotson, Mr. Mercado, and Dr. Winkler from the National Conflict Resolution will be hosting a restorative practices workshop for student leaders. And in this workshop, student leaders can learn the foundations of restorative practices and how to apply it to their leadership. And I thank them from the bottom of my heart for collaborating with me to ensure that this happens. And secondly, I am excited to announce that on this Friday, actually, the ASB Advisor Coordinator, Ms. Scott, and I will be reviewing applicants for a potential Student Advisory Council. And what this would entail, this would be a group of students that would be working with the student board member, obviously, for the next school year in ensuring that student voices around the district are heard. So this first ever Student Advisory Council would be a student-led committee within SUHSD that focuses on mobilizing students to advocate for change within their district, educating and involving their peers in educational policy, district updates, projects, and other initiatives pertaining to the quality of education and inclusivity of the environment that students feel within SUHSD. And the third is sort of a personal shout out from being at Olympian High School. I would like to extend my personal congratulations to Henry Morales from Olympian. He was selected this weekend for the All Southern California Honor Band. So through an online audition process, he was selected as one of the 3 Euphorium players in the entire Southern California to participate in this honor band. So it's a great honor, and Henry is actually the first person from Olympian High School to be granted with this as well. And that is all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Adamos. And with that, we'll move to, this is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the superintendent's office for review and report. Speakers shall refrain from using profanity and shall speak in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation. Clerk of the board, will you please read the items? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deanne. I'm getting ahead.
Thank you. The first comments are from Elizabeth McKay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead and speak loudly, please. Go ahead.
My role as a parent is to ensure that my student grows emotionally, mentally, and physically so that he can be an asset to the community when he grows up. However, with the continued shutdown of schools and sports, this growth has significantly slowed. Your role as a school board is to ensure that the district is responsive to the values, beliefs, and priorities of the community. This includes providing community leadership as advocates for the students in the community. Your responsibilities are to the public to whom you are accountable. Like many parents, I have written letters and sent emails to the board regarding opening schools and resuming sports. They have gone unanswered and unacknowledged. I do not feel the school board has maintained open communication with the community, and as a parent, I feel dismissed. Teenagers that were once thriving in our communities and in sports are now stuck inside staring at a computer screen for hours a day. Teen depression is at an all-time high. In addition, a recent NBC study shows students are suffering from lack of sleep because of stress, lack of routine, and not having a set schedule. High school is supposed to be a time for teens to learn who they are and what they want from the world and how they can have a positive impact. With the current situation, that outlook on life looks bleak. This is a travesty to our youth and their mental and physical well-being. Other states have successfully navigated this issue of letting kids back to school and back to sports while keeping them safe. Our children should have the same opportunities that other states have afforded their children. On Friday, February 19th, San Diego Superior Court Judge Earl Moss granted a temporary restraining order allowing high school and youth sport to resume in San Diego County. Quote, as long as they follow the same or similar COVID-19 protocols imposed for competition in professional and or collegiate sports within the county. Based on this ruling, all our athletes should be allowed to return to sport. I urge you to give families the option to return to in-person learning and to allow sports to resume. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Kathleen Cheers.
Good evening. Last meeting, much time was spent heralding the new org chart, accolades which would be expected with news of increased graduation rates. Ms. Hall stated she had not seen an org chart in years. Upon review of the 10-12-218 chart, there are no differences other than the recent new titles and realignment of a few positions. Oh, and that whopping $30,000 savings. Piggybacking on the calls the teachers union had just a year ago when they requested an accounting of any all positions in the district office budget, Trustee Aaron Seidler, I recall you voting for the new chief positions with the caveat of expectations less personnel would do more work. Are those changes forthcoming? I recently spent the better portion of a day researching and reviewing Sweetwater data from the California Department of Ed. Trustees, are you aware of the disparity in graduation rates and college-bound students between the East Side and West Side? Did you know when Olympian was built, the then superintendent scoured West Side schools for the creme de la creme of teachers to transfer to Olympian? Disparity is what you should be focused on versus a celebration of an org chart. We watch these meetings and we witness soft noise from you trustees. No depth, little effort. I would like to address Ms. Hall's statement regarding input for the new superintendent search. I applaud the recommendations of you, Mr. Solis, Segura, and Aaron Seeley, made to ensure any and all inclusive groups were listened to. Mr. Tarantino's school site recommendation shot down by Ms. Hall, allowing her animus towards me to enter the conversation. She knows I'm an SSC member, and rather than state publicly she didn't want my voice to be heard, which I would have received as honest, she would disrespected each and every school site member in our district. That is reprehensible. ELAC reads in comments on SSC issues. DLAC advises the board. Allow me to remind Ms. Hall, SSC is charged by the state with decision-making on how Title I monies are spent. Many ELAC, DLAC members have not historically attended SSC meetings as they're busy with the responsibilities of their own important committees. I publicly apologize to my school site council peers that you were denied a vote because of me. When I reviewed the committees recommended by the board, SSC's omission is an absolute obvious snub. Denigrated is not important. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Matt Dixon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. The district appears to be cowering to special interest groups instead of being a voice for the children. You were elected to make the best decisions for our children despite union pressure. Many other districts have committed to reopening, and Sweetwater remains an outlier. We are hoping your March 1st announcement details metrics for moving to stage 3. We know you believe you're in stage 1 currently because of your disingenuous interpretation, but remind you that you are in stage 2 as written in black and white. Please disclose your error to the public and announce parameters to move to stage 3. To continue to sit idly blaming the numbers is not acceptable. The case rates in South Bay have been similar to other parts of the country where leadership has made in-person education a priority and kept schools open and the community safe. The numbers have not kept the kids in virtual learning, but your leadership has. You have an opportunity to reopen. You had the opportunity to reopen when the country was in the red tier, and you failed your community. Educate your families. Publish the weekly revised reopening metrics on the reopening dashboard. Families need to know that the district zip codes are quickly moving toward meeting your revised reopening criteria. Do you know that your testing positivity rate is 8.8% currently? Close to your 2-week goal of 8%. All of the zip codes in the district have case rates less than 200 per week. Is the district prepared to move forward as soon as the county is in the red tier, CDPH tier 2? I'm sure your medical expert district physician will make a decision in line with the CDC recommendations. We are very close. Let your families know there is some hope. So that's got some case rates. Imperial Beach is at 31, Chula Vista 30.2, Spring Valley 31.6, Bonita 25.9, El Cajon 35.3, Granite Hills 44.9. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next comments are from Kimberly Dixon. Kimberly Dixon, are you on the call?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, good evening. I asked that Superintendent Aguirre, as an advocate for our kids to return to school. I heard his comment about being an advocate for staff. We need an advocate for our children. During the last board meeting, it became quite evident that you were under pressure from the union to remain closed until all teachers have received both vaccine doses. One union rep who called in even went as far as to say he wanted all teachers to remain in virtual learning until 6 weeks after the second vaccine dose. I would like to remind you that the CDC recently reported that schools can reopen safely even without teachers being vaccinated. The CDC also shows that there's little evidence that schools have contributed to community transmission. The union demands are not based on science. Like every other frontline worker who has continued to work without a vaccine, school staff can keep themselves safe when returning to campus. I am not saying we shouldn't prioritize teachers, because we should, but we should parallel process and continue to move forward with reopening our schools. There are many other districts that did reopen, as they should have, when the county was in the red tier, and I'm sure you can follow their lead, follow their protocols, and keep staff and students safe. Waiting on vaccines should not stop staff from returning to the campus safely. If you continue to keep our schools closed due to union pressure about vaccines, you are saying that you are smarter than the CDC, World Health Organization, American Academy of Pediatrics, and most medical experts. DA Summer Stephan recently highlighted the dangers of human trafficking during online school. She said technology-based exploitation during the pandemic has tripled. By not offering families a choice to be on campus, you are giving predators an opportunity to exploit our children. Youth suicides has substantially increased during the pandemic. The CDC found that mental health-related emergency room visits for children shot up 30%. By not allowing students back on campus, you are failing to protect our children. Besides being held hostage to the union, it appears some trustees are letting emotions and fear drive their reopening decisions based on their social media posts. Instead of making decisions based on your personal perspective of COVID, please walk in the shoes of many of the families you represent and understand the children in our community are suffering. You appear to be letting emotion, not data, drive your reopening decisions. The evidence is clear. Giving families and teachers a choice to return to campus is the right thing to do, and it is your duty as a civic representative. For the sake of the health and safety of our children, using science, not fear, I ask that you move forward quickly on school reopening. Thank you.
Thank you. The next comments are from Nick Marinovich.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Greetings. How this district reacts to the pandemic and the Coronavirus Relief Act will tell a lot about which masters this district serves. And I was thinking here, I have one overarching question. If for some magical way, a wave of a magic wand, and we vaccinated all the teachers and all the staff, and yesterday, or tomorrow, I should say, would we be ready to open up safely once they had their second shot and 2 weeks thereafter? Have we made the investment in the safety protocols that are adequate to open up these schools? I think we ought to be looking at that question. But moreover, looking back at this CARES Act, when it was first, came to the picture, what kind of process? I'd be asking as a board member, what kind of process did we have to determine where we're going to put the limited amount of funds? Who made the? Were you really involved that much in the decision to emphasize remote learning versus safety protocols in schools? And speaking of that, of safety protocols, what money has been invested in testing and contact tracing? I'm not saying it's not there, but I'd like to find the data on that. And very importantly, what are the metrics? How well have we done on this remote learning? How are we going to measure our success or areas where we came up short? And in the future, how are you going to prioritize future funds? Is there going to be, from the federal government, is there going to be a logical process for determining where these funds are going to go? And I think really what this in the end result is this pandemic and this CARES Act spending is going to say a lot about the leadership of this district. Are you going to succumb to the political supporters and special interests? It's been pretty obvious thus far that the bent on spending the federal money has been on remote learning. And what is the real plan to open the schools? In closing, we talk a lot about the unions, and we all know what it is. They're a political force, one of the most powerful political forces in this nation and in this California. But what we really need, and I know it's unrealistic, is the parents and the students need their union. They need to have the kind of power to really make their voice heard. But that's not the way it works in politics. And I just beg you to really look at what do we need to do right now that we haven't already done to open up the schools with that federal money? Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further comments on non-agenda items.
Thank you. Clerk, could please read the item being pulled from the consent agenda.
Yes, the following items are pulled: F3 by staff, F7 by staff, G1 by Mr. Tarantino, staff and the public, G4 by Mr. Tarantino, H2 by Mrs. Hall and the public, K6 by staff and the public, K7 by staff and the public, M2 by the public, and N4 by the public.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Solis.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Adamos?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yeah.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Now we can move to K6.
Correct. I believe we'll take the staff presentation first and then public comments. Dr. Salkeld?
Thank you, Deanne. Board President Segura, Board Trustee, Superintendent Aguirre, Cabinet, and the community. Before Crow presents the financials, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context, because since the last update board item that was brought in late September, which was our 2018-19 audited financials, the fiscal services team has been working very closely with the Crow team soon thereafter, after that presentation in late September, all the way through what we're presenting today. looking at the transactions for the 2019-20 fiscal year, pulling a lot of samples, pulling a lot of documentation schedules and so forth for all of the district funds. And so we did present a draft of these financials for K6 is the district-wide financials, K7 is our bond Prop O financials, as well as the performance audit that's in accordance with Proposition 39 requirements. We did present to our Audit and Finance Subcommittee last week on February 16th. And then we also, on the bond side of the financials, did present to the Citizens Business Oversight Committee January 20th. So we have shared that with those respective committees. And with that, one other item that I'd like to highlight is this is very unique in terms of our timing of bringing forward this item. Typically, our annual financials are brought to the board by December 15th, according to the statutory requirement. With the COVID environment over this past year, the executive order at the state level by the governor extended that time frame, that statutory deadline, to March 31st. So we are ahead of that timeline by a little over a month. So we are on schedule with that. One other item that I'd like to highlight, and the CROW team will go over the various elements of the financial statements, some of the notes to the financial statements, and also the findings. One thing to highlight is the district and in its effort to improve the financial position, but also the related internal controls, financial structures, and so forth. You will see, and our team here, the CROW team, will highlight this, there is an improvement to the findings compared to last year. Last year, many of the findings demonstrated material weaknesses. This particular update will now show a shift or an improvement to see notes as significant deficiencies. There's still a lot of work ahead, but what the team will highlight is a common theme that a lot of it is centered around the district's true course accounting system. There is a lot of commonality amongst those findings. We are in the process of making those changes and implementing a new system to go live here over the summer at the start of the new fiscal year. So again, we've made some improvements, but we still have a lot of work ahead to remedy and address those findings. So at this point, I'd like to transition to the CROW partner, Kevin Smith, who will start and will review the details with the board.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Dr. Sockel really teed it up well for me. Throughout, my message is a message of significant improvement from fiscal year 20 compared to fiscal year 19, both in processes as in internal controls, as well as the overall fiscal condition of the district. She also hit the key element that I would also say is critical for the board to remember, is that it is a difficult journey, and you're not done with the journey from an improvement standpoint as it relates to processes or fiscal condition. But again, a couple key points, and Elizabeth, if you could pull up the financial statements. We'll start with our opinions. So the financial statements are the responsibility of management and those charged with governance. Within the financial statements, we're responsible for our opinion, which you've engaged us to perform that audit in accordance with both generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards promulgated by the Comptroller General of the United States. One key point there, and I think it should go without saying, but we performed this entire engagement remote. With that said, the auditing standards don't change. It was still a very robust audit, with reduced materialities related to risk, reliance upon significant sampling sizes, etc. The remote environment does not remove our requirements to follow the standards. With that said, we are 99.9% done. One of the major pending items is presenting the draft financial statements to you. But I can say that that we intend to issue an unmodified opinion upon the financial statements, and you see here this in this last paragraph. That's the highest level of assurance that we can provide, and it means that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards, as well as supported by the underlying books and records of the district. A couple of key points, though, that I'd like to make here. Unmodified opinion was issued in the last year as well, but there were restatements that were required to impact beginning fund balance, as well as adjustments to that current year operations. In the current year, we did not have entries of that magnitude, whether it be from a dollar standpoint or sheer number of the entries. So the financial statements or the underlying books and records were very much closer aligned to the ultimate results of the district at the conclusion of the audit. We do include an emphasis of matter as part of our deliverable. An emphasis of matter is just really a paragraph designed to alert the reader to an important fact. It does not modify our opinion, but in this case, we've referenced the significant or doubt towards the district's ability to continue as a going concern, i.e. exist 12 months past the date of the balance sheet. One can argue from a variety of different technical ways. I have no doubt that the district will be in business within 12 months from today, but I'm following accounting standards that require me to evaluate fiscal condition and its ability to seek funding, etc. As you know, the district is currently very heavily reliant upon some funding from the San Diego County. That funding is very fluid and does not have a long-term date. So we are not able to say that within the next 12 months predict that the district would still be able to have that funding. So we have continued with the emphasis of matter from a going concern perspective. That last year, though, I will say was one of the elements that really caused us concern from a going concern. The other was really related to the fund balance, particularly within the general fund. And as we get to the balance sheet and both the income statement at the fund level, you'll see dramatic improvements there. The next element of the financial statements is management's discussion and analysis. This is intended to be kind of a layman's terms, an analysis by management of what occurred within the fiscal year. The elements are prescribed by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, so certain elements have to be addressed in certain manners. But I would say that if you're going to spend time with the report, this is one of the key areas to really look at. It's also, I'm going to pause and say, when we met with the audit committee, I would also really stress to the board as a whole that the audit committee, I believe, is fulfilling their fiduciary responsibility. Long discussion, very robust give and take, had reviewed the drafts prior to our meeting. And one of the comments that they made was really expanding on, and not significantly, but a couple sentences as to really describe the why that fund balance improved so much. So that is one minor tweak that you would have seen from a draft to what we plan to issue from a final standpoint. And Elizabeth is highlighting the one-time sentence, or the significant portion of the increase was due to one-time cost savings from closure of school sites, as you're very well aware of. That takes us to the government-wide set of financial statements. I won't spend a lot of time here, but this is a consolidated look at the district. Puts all funds together, brings everything to a modified or to a full accrual basis. And when I say full accrual, that means we're bringing on all capital assets or all fixed assets of the district. We're also bringing on all long-term liabilities without regard as to when those liabilities will have to be repaid. As you can see, approximately $1.24 billion in long-term liabilities. These are made up of a variety of bonds, as well as significant estimates as it relates to the other post-employment benefits, as well as the pension obligations, both at CalSTRS and at CalPERS. The net impact, as you can see, is pretty dramatic when you bring those two numbers, the assets and the liabilities. Although the total net position is positive, the amounts that are listed as unrestricted is $631 million to the negative. But again, as you spend time understanding that reconciliation between this and the fund level, you realize that almost 100% of this negative net position relates to both the OPEB and the pension funding. And again, those are long-term in nature and will be funded over the course of 20, if not 50 years. Really, that then takes us to the income statement, which is a very unique look at trying to roll forward how the net assets improved or deteriorated in the current year. Really going to point out just one number here. The change in net position had a $21.5 million improvement in the current year. That takes us to the fund level financial statements, which I think as board members you would be much more familiar with. And it's presented as a basis that is much more consistent with how you budget and how you manage your operations on a monthly basis. Really want to focus in on the fund balance, both the assigned and unassigned within the general fund. That unassigned fund balance in the prior year was a negative amount, and it is now improved to north of 14 million. This is a dramatic improvement for Sweetwater and should be commended. I know we said that is in relation to some one-time savings as it relates to closure of campuses, but it's also the results of early retirement and a variety of other things that the district has instituted to turn the overall fiscal health of the district around. So this is something that should really be commended in focusing on this unassigned fund balance of 14.5 million. The next schedule or statement is the income statement or statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. And again, this is kind of that roll forward or the year cash receipts, cash disbursements, and understanding the impact that it had upon fund balance. As you can see, your revenues exceeded your expenditures by over 26 million, and that's really what drove that moving from being in the negative fund balance or unassigned fund balance to a positive, excuse me, of 27 million. The other funds listed on this set of financial statements would include.
Right, thanks, Dr. Jenny. No, he doesn't.
Your building fund, your capital projects blended for component units or the Mellorews, and then all other non-major funds are lumped together in that fourth column, and then the final column is the governmental funds as in total. The next couple schedules reconcile what you see at the government-wide versus the fund level. The next part of the financial statements are the notes to the financial statements, and it's really important to spend some time here. I won't go through the notes on a detailed level, but I do want to take you to the going concern footnote, and you'll see that it has been reduced from a narrative standpoint in the prior year to what is presented in the current year. It really focuses, in my mind, on two things. Again, the borrowings from the County of San Diego Treasurer and the inability to freeze that or to tighten that out over 12 months. We've also expanded the disclosure as it relates to both the District Attorney's investigation as well as the Security and Exchange Commission's investigation. This was disclosed in the prior year. It has been brought forward based upon what we know today versus what we knew for fiscal year 18 and 19. But here, again, based upon inquiries with your bond counsel, your management, as well as internal counsel, nothing has been accrued for it, as any penalties or fines, etc., are not deemed to be probable and reasonably estimable at this point in time. But again, it's included here as disclosure and transparency to your bondholders and other end users of the report. Final footnote that I would point out is the COVID-19 impact, the impact it's had both from a financial statement impact upon you as well as operations. I know with what you've gone through and going remote, et cetera, there's no way 2 paragraphs would ever explain the impact that COVID-19 has had. But from a financial statement or a user perspective, we believe that this is adequate. And then management has identified 2 subsequent events. Those are items that occurred post June 30th, 2020. that they believe that the readers of the financial statement should be aware of. I'm going to pause while Elizabeth goes to the next section, which is the reconciliation between the financial statements, excuse me, and the unaudited actuals. As you can see, the unaudited actuals improved from 25.54 million to 27.5. What I would really point out here is these are not errors that were identified in the current audit period. As Dr. Saucheld mentioned, the timing of last year's fiscal audit extended past the closure of even fiscal year 2020. So this was really management's inability to record entries to the proper period because those periods had been closed. This will flush out this year and would not be a carry forward on a go forward basis. But these differences, whether it relates to accounts payable, adjustment to cash and bank and cash county treasurer, those are all timing as to how they were recorded to the general ledger in the current year, but related to past fiscal years. So there was no restatement, and there's really nothing that I think that as a board member should concern me within this reconciliation. But again, on a go forward basis, it's really something to pay attention to because it shows you the difference between what management has been presenting to you and the ultimate impact of the financial statement audit. The next schedule of RSI, we look at schedule of various financial trends. This looks at both the adopted budget from 21 through 18. It's a valuable place to go look to really understand the available reserves and fund balance. As you can see, there has been dramatic improvement from 19 when those designated for economic uncertainties were 0 and no undesignated fund balance. To have moved to that 13 or 14 million, again, is absolutely a positive and good story for the district in the current year. Other elements of the RSI will include information as it relates to both your OPEB as well as the retirement, both CalSTRS and CalPERS. We also issue or perform, we also issue in a report on your compliance with state awards or state expenditures, as well as an audit of the federal expenditures. As you can see from this summary of results, we intend to issue an unmodified report on compliance at both the federal and state levels. And we have not identified any findings that are required to be communicated within this report. Dr. Saucheld mentioned that in the past we have noted, I believe last year we had 3 material weaknesses. And a material weakness is a deficiency within internal control that we believe that management in their normal course of operations would not potentially be able to identify a material misstatement within the financial statements. In the current year, as a result of all of our test work, we did not identify any material weaknesses. However, we identified certain deficiencies within the internal control structure. The AICPA defines a significant deficiency as something that is less than a material weakness, but is still worthy of the attention of those charged with governance, or in this case, the school board. We believe that the 3 findings that we've included as significant deficiencies are worthy of your attention. The methodology or the processes that were put in place by management have been very robust, but they are very manual in nature, and they are designed to compensate for weaknesses embedded within the true course general ledger system. Almost all weaknesses that we continue to identify ultimately start and kind of end with true course. And then management has things in place to mitigate those weaknesses. But because your general ledger is a central tenet to proper financial reporting or financial capturing of transactions and ultimately financial reporting, we believe that it is important enough that the school board be aware of those issues, as well as continue to show the tone at the top and support that you continue to show as it relates to the implementation of the new system. The new system is not a silver bullet. It's a lot of work to implement, and there will still be, controls that have to be in place by management. But I cannot overestimate the importance of getting this implementation right, as well as the importance of really moving beyond true course at this point in time. It's a system that is not serving the district well. The significant deficiencies, one related to, again, the reconciliation of information between true course and a variety of subsidiary ledgers. The second relates to capital assets. If you remember back to the balance sheet, over $1 billion of school district capital assets or fixed assets, all maintained outside of the system within Excel spreadsheet, limited internal controls as it relates to the ability to go in and modify that information. No indications that any capital asset has been misplaced, misappropriated, etc. It is purely about the internal controls related to the capturing of the information. The third deficiency relates to reconciliation between the payroll register and then ultimately what is posted by the county treasurer. It's really at a very granular level to be able to identify any errors that we're making this recommendation. Management has put into place, and you can recognize the difference between here and the findings that we'll get to in the documents past findings in a second, but they have implemented a variety of internal controls, some specifically related to this transaction that we're talking about. But ultimately, in my mind, the reconciliations that we referred to in the first bullet, timely cash reconciliations, timely accounts payable, accounts receivable reconciliations, etc., also mitigate the risk that we see here within this significant deficiency. So again, management has done a tremendous job of moving these three items from material weakness to significant deficiency, but still Dr. Sockeld's line, the work's not done yet. We have one other that's just considered a deficiency. It's not a material weakness or significant deficiency under auditing standards, not required to bring this forward to the board, but management continues to want us to be as transparent as possible, both with the board and the public. We identified one error as it relates to our bond audit that we will go into greater detail, but it is included here. I will point out this effect: the capital outlay expenditures are overstated by $88,000. I want to stress that it was a proper expenditure. It was not an improper expenditure. It is truly related to when the transaction was recorded. It was recorded in fiscal year 20, should have been recorded in fiscal year 19, but there was a significant delay in receiving the information from the County Office of Education and having it posted to within the district's general ledger. But again, not an improper expenditure, 100% related to timing of the recording of the transaction. Again, I mentioned an unmodified opinion upon the federal award findings and question costs, so no matters were reported here. Same for the state award findings and question costs, a variety of elements that were required under the California Audit Guide to audit. And again, all of that was performed without exception. Here's where we document last year's material weaknesses. As you can see, this one related to fiscal stability and the current status. This has been implemented, and you guys did have the required contingency reserves for uncertainties. These are a variety of what we just referred to as the three significant deficiencies. You can see what the condition was as of fiscal year 19, what our recommendation was, and whether it has been, and the fact that they have each been partially implemented in the current year. is a very high level and quick discussion of 104 pages, as well as a lot of hours incurred by your management team in responding to basically what turned into 2 audits almost back to back. As I shared with the audit committee, it is tough for me as an auditor to say I've given a going concern opinion as an emphasis of matter, as well as I had 3 significant deficiencies, but yet I view it as a positive attitude or a positive audit. Your finance team has made tremendous progress in improving the internal controls over the district's funds and the financial reporting. And I also, as far as its overall fiscal condition, you are moving in the right direction. With that, I'm going to pause for just a second, and Trustee Hall, or however we should go, I'm coming to you because you're my audit committee chair, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I think, Mr. Smith, I think we're going to have some public comment first, if that's correct, Deanne?
Yes, I have 2 speakers to this item. The first speaker is Kathleen Cheers.
This audit is a clear indication of what happens when in-depth audits are authorized by the board. Of course, we cannot overlook the elephant in the room. There were the voices of the public on the initially agreed upon lack of scope for this audit. Our calls for a deep budget dive sneered at by trustees, as we didn't know what we were talking about. We looked to the audit subcommittee headed by Ms. Hall, senior budget analyst, to hear our warning. While she claimed she asked respectfully if she was a true community tax-paying parent advocate, she would have put her ego aside and trusted we knew what we were talking about. We do have a proven track record. The scope changed when the multi-million deficit was made public. Surely the investigation of the SEC played a major role in the auditor submitting a change order. More in-depth audit, higher costs. Historically, we've been calling for in-depth audits for 12 plus years. To receive them only once, Moss Adams. It was the public who, for over a year, stood in the podium without cries that financials were not true. Unfortunately, we were right again, and we found ourselves in a multi-million-dollar deficit. Our ongoing focus, CARES Act funding accountability. If CARES Act dollars were used to increase fund balances and the reserves. Recognition to our prior superintendent, Janney, for the improvements implemented, which has led to those changes noted by Crow. In closing, Dr. Southhouse, compliments to you and your staff for your continuing extraordinary efforts. You and your staff are, in fact, the true heroes. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Nick Marinovich.
Good evening, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay, good. I want to kudos what Kathleen Cheer said about Jenny Sawkeld and Nancy Bacone and the rest of the staff that put all this information together, and the auditor for doing a much more in-depth financial audit than we've seen in the prior years under a different firm doing that. And there is good news. I'm referring to page 64 of the audit. We had a budgeted reserves projected at $5.4 million. We ended up general fund reserve at $27.6 million. And then the question arises, and maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but how do we get there? How did that happen? Well, about 20% of it, if you look just in the plus side of the equation, again, these are rough numbers, was related to savings beyond budget in salaries and benefits. But if you look at the revenue was substantially higher under this budget savings than what was projected. So that helps out. Then there's a precipitous decline in books and supplies. You'll notice on that line on page 64, and on contract services and operating expenditures as well. So then the question arises, maybe this is something you want to ask the auditor, are these one-time temporary blips in the budget due to external circumstances or decisions that could be deferred for this 1 year, or is it a permanent or semi-permanent trend as we move forward in the future. My concern from following this district forever is that we deal with the long-term problems that are arising in the district and have the forward way of thinking in terms of making plans. So I just ask as we move forward that we remember we're going to have a post-pandemic world, and we're going to have a post-pandemic average daily attendance. And I don't think it's going to look so good once that cap that exists now on your ADA goes away in terms of your funding requirements. We must be ever mindful of the fact that the bulk of our expenditures are salaries and benefits. Until we get, and hopefully we do, have that under control, we're going to continue to have structural deficits. And again, I want to thank Jenny Stockfeld and her staff. This is like board, this is way, way better than it was several years ago before she was there. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. There are no further speakers on this item.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any comments on this? Trustee Hall, would you like to go? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You can take that down off the web. I don't need to look at the pages now. I just want to thank Jenny Stockfeld and her team, and Kevin Smith and his team for the work. I know it's been a tremendous effort over the last 2 years getting through all this, really familiarizing yourself in the first year when you were trying to dig back to 2017 and try to figure out what the real balance was to start with 2018-19, and then to have this audit come forward with the positives. And yes, I do understand what Kevin, you have said about it being one-time money. Our one-time savings with some of the closures we've had, I know that there's more work to be done to get us to a place where we won't have that note 12 looking as hopefully we can get there. Is it your consideration that we can get there so that that going concern will not be a significant finding again in the coming year, do you think, or will it take us 2 or 3 more years to get to that position? You're muted.
Muted, sir.
Auditors look backwards by nature. I think
yes,
it's probably a better question for Dr. Stockfeld with all of her projections and analysis, etc. The one thing that I failed to mention, and I apologize for this during my presentation, the CARES Act funding, that by definition as to when that was received by the district and when it was apportioned by the state of California, that is not reflected as either a compliance audit issue or reflected within the financial statements. It's just not a part of the fiscal year 2020. So something I should have mentioned, I forget sometimes to talk about what's not there versus what is there, but that is not embedded within the fiscal year 2020 financial statements. Dr. Stockfeld, like I said, I'm going to punt the question of projections to you.
You're muted.
Got to put in a buck for that. So Trustee Hall, I think to your question, I think we continue as a district to move forward in that positive direction. I mean, we've already seen that improvement with our first interim where we represented a qualified certification, and that was reaffirmed by the county. We continue our goal to get a positive certification, hopefully here in the near future. But I think that going concern piece, as a district, we have shifted away our internal fund borrowing for working capital purposes away from Fund 49. So we are going to the county treasury, and I think that's where it stems to a lot of the points that the CRO team mentioned. That borrowing aspect is year to year. And whether it's from the county treasurer or then when we go and issue a trans tax revenue anticipation note independently, that'll always be a consideration because we'll have that working capital component to factor.
Thank you. And I agree. There's a lot to the financial statements that you'll notice. I mean, We do have a large obligation that's outstanding for our retirement and OPEB. I mean, that is key. We need to reduce, as we move forward with actuarials and we start paying down that debt, it will be helping. And as we move to a trans funding for our cash flow, that will be helpful maybe in establishing a more, and so that consideration will be in more solid ground, is what I want to say. But I want to really point out the fact that your team, Dr. Salkeld, has done a tremendous amount of work, and you are doing that with the transition to a new system in 4. But it's also all the management team across the district in making sure that they are doing their due diligence and being fiscally responsible, because I don't think that was occurring, as well as it possibly is now. Because you are informing people, you are getting out there and training principals and staff about what they need to do in order to be fiscally responsible for their budgets and for their expenditures. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to let the board know that we did have a very robust discussion at our audit subcommittee meeting. It was all on the positive, I think, and they want to recommend that we accept this audit. I think it has been a very good, despite what some people were very negative when we brought Crow on board and awarded them the contract. You have done very, really clear, concise. You've laid out the financials of the district and the audit in a way that's very understandable and very clear. All your notes are very clear in how they point out the different factors of our district's financial health, and I want to really appreciate your work. So thank you and thank the team. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other board members have any comments on this? This is just a report. I'll just say I'd like to thank the team. I know Mr. Smith and Ms. Saab, you mentioned a couple times during the finance and audit meeting about the significant improvement tonight, the significant improvement by the whole district's management team in getting it to where we're at, and Dr. Salkeld and all of that going back to to past superintendent. So I appreciate all that work. This just didn't happen. This has been ongoing since Dr. Salkeld started here. It's been what you've been focused on, and but I appreciate that. And I'm glad you clarified that, Mr. Smith, because that was going to be my question about. I knew the answer about the COVID and whether that got us that $14,591,170 balance, and it doesn't. So I appreciate the report, and it looks like Mr. Tarantino has his hand up, sir.
Thank you, President Segura. I was just wondering if Dr. Scavarna could weigh in on the results of the audit, since he's our fiscal advisor assigned by the County Office of Education. Any insight?
Absolutely. I have been a part of the audit committee meetings and worked closely with the district's fiscal arm in this, and I'm very, very impressed with the work the audit team has done and the work that Crow has done. I think that you folks should be quite satisfied for the course corrections that you have made to get you to the point that you're at. And I think that everybody continues to work as a team, and I think that it'll get better and better and better. And I would also fall in the area that Dr. Salkeld made some comments about. You know what, there's a lot of things we have to look at in the future and everything else, and please just keep a heads up towards that. And you guys have noticed that I've made comments about the new financial system when we started our board meetings, and I have a real strong interest in that, as well as Dr. Salkeld does, because we want that thing to go perfectly, and we're trying to blow holes in it. So rest assured that it's going to be a major, major improvement from the financial system that we currently operate with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scavarna. Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura. I just wanted to say I'm really pleased with hearing Mark Scavarna talk about the new system, because I really believe that is another decision that our board made that is really, I think, was really the right decision. And as we move into that system, I think it will prove itself out. It was designed for a school system, not for a higher education, not for private business. It was really designed, as we learned during David Della Quezada's presentations, for a K-12 type school system. And I think it will be a really good fit and give us the transparent reporting that we need, and the subsidiary ledgers that are needed to really track information, as said, in a way where the approval systems will be in there, the hierarchy of who has the authority to do different postings. It'll be transparent and really give us that. So I look forward to that transition this summer, and I know the team is working hard. So thank you all for that. And I'm looking forward to hear what Sarah has to say next year when they do the audit on 2021. So thank you.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any more questions or comments on K6, so we can move to K7.
We actually need a motion to accept the audit.
Really?
So
I'll make I'll second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded to accept the audit. Vote, please.
Adamos?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yeah.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, now to K7.
Dr. Salkeld, you're muted.
I'll transition this one back to Kevin to highlight the bond program financials and performance audit.
Great. First, I want to thank someone who's not in attendance. Tim Knupp, who had a family emergency tonight, serves as my manager on these two engagements to provide kind of a separation between the financial statement team as well as the Propo audit, both the performance and the financial statements. So I know Tim wishes he could be here with us tonight, but I'm going to have Elizabeth drive the bus again, and we should be good. So Elizabeth, if you would load that report, please. So we issue two opinions as it relates to the Propo or the Prop 39 bond funds. The first set is a financial statement of just that fund. So it is not represented to be the entirety of Sweetwater Unified. It is purely just the Propo funds. As you can see, the opinion is very similar to what you saw on the financial statement audit. We spell out management's responsibility as well as our auditor responsibility. And that, again, is to perform our audit in accordance with both generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. We do intend to issue an unmodified opinion upon these financial statements. And in this case, we've also included an emphasis of matter, but unlike the importance of the going concern paragraph that was included within the school district audit, this is purely kind of a technicality. And it's issued anytime you issue a set of financial statements on something less than the government as a whole. So it's just alerting the reader, no matter how many times we told you in the first 5 paragraphs that this is only on the Propo funds. Again, this is only on the Propo funds and not Sweetwater as a whole. And we've issued our report on the other report required by government auditing standards, which would include any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. As you can see, it's a very simplistic balance sheet with the vast majority of the assets embedded within cash and investments, a small amount of accounts payable and due to other funds, coming to a fund balance which is restricted by external parties of $43 million. We then go to the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. This, to a layman, could could cause concern because there's a line item called deficiencies of revenues under expenditures. This is typical within a bond fund. It is purely saying this is what happens in the year you're not issuing debt. You've issued debt in the past, now you're expending it, whether it be on capital outlay or a variety of smaller expenditures as it relates to your capital program. Again, fund balance within the Propo fund at year end of $43.1 million for future capital outlay. Similar to the financial statements for the district, it includes significant accounting or footnotes that have significant accounting policies that highlight the information within the financial statements. As you can see, the vast majority of the $43 million is cash versus investment, and the vast majority of that is maintained with the county treasurer, a very small amount with the fiscal agent. Note 4 is construction commitments. So these have not reached the accounts payable status yet, but it is something that you have contractual obligations for work that is yet to be performed, and that totaled $10.3 million at fiscal year end. Then a small disclosure as it relates to interfund activities, just walking through how funds could be transferred in or out of the Propo funds. This explains earlier when we looked at the balance sheet, there was a due to and a due from. This gives the reader why those transactions occurred or what they're for, as well as walks through what the transfers were between unrestricted funds and the Propo fund of an immaterial amount of $8,000 in the current year. This is the report on internal control issued in accordance with GAS or government auditing standards. Again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were identified within the Propo audit or the Propo financial statement audit. There was the one deficiency, however, we've included that as 2020-001. This is the accounts payable that I referred to, or the expenditure that I referred to during the school district audit of the $88,000. Again, a proper expenditure, a valid expenditure. It was recorded in fiscal year 20 when it should have been recorded in fiscal year 19, and the amounts were clearly immaterial. It did not impact our opinion at all. And you can see from the views of the responsible officials what kind of gave rise to it and what they have done to ensure that transactions aren't mistimed in the future. That is what the draft of the financial statements on the Propo 39. And before, do you guys, Trustee Hall, do you want me to go to the Propo performance audit or answer any questions now on the financial statements?
I think that's up to our president, Segura.
Do we have, yes, Deanne, do we have comments on that, or do we normally do both and then move on?
Yeah, we have comments on the full item, so I would say do the next report and then we'll take the public comment.
All right, thank you.
So we also do a performance audit. So a performance audit, unlike an audit of financial statements, requires there to be, for lack of better words, an objective stated. And then we perform procedures to determine whether or not that objective has been met. It's in accordance with California state law that these performance audits be performed on the Propo fund. This is our opinion. It looks slightly different than what you saw on the financial statements, but it's prepared in accordance with government auditing standards. As you can see in that final paragraph, our conclusion is that the results of our test indicated that in all significant respects, Sweetwater Union High School District met the objectives listed on pages 4 through 10 and the expended Propo general obligation bond funds for the year ended June 30th, 2020. Were only for specific projects developed by the governing board and approved by the voters in accordance with the requirements of Prop 39 as defined by the California Constitution. I won't go through the entirety. Then there's a brief background information that explains the Propo funds, the process, etc. As I explained earlier, the objectives are listed on pages 4 through 10. I won't go through each of the objectives, but what I will is walk through the first one to understand kind of the flow of the report. So the objective in this case was determine compliance with public contract code related to bid requirements and district policy. The next section of the report explains what exactly the procedures that were performed by the CROW team, and then the conclusion reached. So in this case, we selected 2 public work contracts out of a total population of 5. It comprised a total value of $1.8 million of construction commitments that the district entered into during the fiscal year from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. So it's really, everything is focused upon this current fiscal year. Later, when we're testing expenditures, it's expenditures in the current year. In this case, it was contracts. It would be contracts entered into the current year. But then you see, we spell out the 5 items that we tested, and then the conclusions that the results of our test indicate that in all significant respects, the district was in compliance with the applicable sections. We go through a variety of 5 compliance requirements, the 5th one having multiple elements, but in each case, our conclusion has been that our tests indicate that the district is in compliance with the objectives of our audit, and therefore an unmodified opinion upon the performance audit of the PROPO funds. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Deanne, do we have some public comment?
Yes, we have 2 speakers to this item. The first comments are from Kathleen Cheers.
Unfortunately, due to the limited scope authorized, the results of the audit offer little. The community longs for the decision-making of trustees truly interested in learning from all audits in the future via in-depth scopes. Will the board start paying for quality audit scopes in all areas? Failure to do so would be a clear indicator we have not learned from errors of past. Regarding the CARES Act funds, the community is aware they were not in play for the financial audit. However, the community is expecting as thorough an audit next year as this one. Ms. Hall, the community was not negative on CROW, but rather the lack of scope authorized by the board that the board was willing to pay for initially. Remember, they came back with a change order once the financial fiasco happened. Our comments are part of the public record. They were then, they are now. Much thanks to the county for pushing the new system on the Sweetwater Union High School District and the board, which was initially dragging their feet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next comments are from Nick Marinovich.
Good evening again. My comments again are on case 7, the performance audit. And as you know, you would expect this year because of the relatively low level activity, I would call it sort of a ho-hummer audit, which is okay. And I think as we move forward, the importance of a performance audit, whenever the SEC and everybody says, okay, it's okay to borrow again, then these performance audits have become much more important because they provide ways of finding ways to improve and make your operations more efficient. But I want to point out one thing and then comment to Ms. Hall's unfortunate comments about referring to a person who was negative on CROW. And I do think, well, let me get to my comment. There was a prior performance audit done by Moss Adams in which they found the district to be non-compliant with basically documenting that they had an appropriate accounting methodology for determining what amount of Prop O funds could be funded out of that year's budget for those program staff. The district used a percentage of time completed as a methodology, like 50% of a person's time would be allocated to Prop O, 50% to Melrose. And Moss Adams found them to be non-compliant because there was not like a timesheet type methodology for documenting those staff hours. So I noticed, in the earlier agenda item, you had a percent, or on the audit committee, a percentage of time of position was being allocated to the CARES Act. Now, we may be apples and oranges from an accounting standpoint. I just wanted to point that out for its consideration. But finally, and I agree, the Crow audit financial was stellar. It was great. It was thorough. It was way, way better than the other audits. But on the performance audit, and I only can speak to the audit that I had as the oversight committee chair several years ago. It was not as good as the prior audit by Moss Adams, prior year's audit. Just go look at the two reports, Moss Adams, Crow first year, and you tell me which audit you think is more constructive to making process improvements. Okay, but finally, and I asked, this is the last time I had a meeting of the Oversight Committee, I asked Crow, how can a Mar Vista Aquatic Center be considered a project when nowhere in the ballot measure does it say Aquatic Center Mar Vista High School, something equivalent of that? The Constitution requires that there be a specific list of projects to be funded in the ballot measure. So how is that compliant with the Prop 39 requirements for bond measures? And I never got a clear answer at the Bond Oversight Committee. And so I just raise that a concern. We have to pay attention to what the legal language says in these ballot measures. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers on this item.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I would raise my hand.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Hall.
Again, this is a very clean and direct report, and the audit subcommittee felt it should be accepted by the board. So that I'm delivering that message to you.
Do we need a motion to go ahead and approve this?
Yes.
Yes, as long as there's no other questions, right?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, so go ahead.
So moved. I move to approve this the bond measure report, please.
I'll second that motion.
Move the second to accept the report. Vote, please.
Adamos?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty.
Thank you, Mr. Smith and Ms. Sav. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. What time is it? Do we need a break? I'm not sure what time it is here.
7:40.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's do F3.
Afternoon.
Anybody want to go first? That's board communications and requests. I'll just mention, oh, go ahead, Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura. I just wanted to give a shout out to Kenneth Bolton, a teacher at Southwest High, who emailed me last week about with some wonderful news. I have it on my phone, sorry. He is a teacher at Southwest High, and Principal Montano encouraged him to start back up the academic decathlon team for the school. And they entered, he did that very thing, and they entered this year's competition and won. They won the county academic decathlon, and we'll be, having a virtual celebration of that on March 10th. So big kudos to them. It's been, I think the last time they won he mentioned was in 2007. And they are now going to the California State Academic Decathlon, which will be held on March 15th through the 21st. So we're hoping to bring them back for recognition in April, but I just want to say kudos to the team. I know it's very rigorous in their competition, and I know that I've been at the county office of ed, when they recognize teams from OTI and from other schools in our district does very well in these competitions. But this is the first year that Southwest High has come back to this. And I want to thank and recognize Principal Montano for that. And Kevin and Ken Bolton, the academic decathlon coach. And the team members of the team members are Tiffany Avila Bastidas, Max Contreras Higuera, Rhea Marbella, Kellen Rodriguez, Arturo Sampson, and Ariana Villanueva. It could be Kaylin Rodriguez. I probably mispronounced that earlier. So congratulations to all those students. Well done. And I also want to say thank you to Desiree Adamos, our student board member, who accompanied me to the Suicide Prevention Council Education Subcommittee meeting this past week and did a tremendous job, very articulate in providing feedback to that committee. I really valued her. They were very appreciative of having her there, and I hope that she will be able to come back in the future and participate more. She represented Sweetwater very well. So thank you, Desiree, for that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. We'll go to Vice President Solis.
Thank you, President Segura. I would like to thank the Last Mile San Diego co-founder, Dr. Amy Almenari, and National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis for coordinating a massive effort with partners from the labor community on a donation of 80 pallets of PPEs for families and organizations for the South County region. These included 128,000 bottles of 16-ounce hand sanitizer and 8,000 thermometers. And I would also like to thank Dr. Aguirre and Dr. Maribel Gavin and the staff at Sweetwater High School for assisting in storing the PPE while it was picked up from the various recipients. Several big rig trucks were driven down from LA and Orange County by Teamsters Local 542 and unloaded by Iron Workers Local 229. The recipient organizations from the region included National School District, Sweetwater High School, Granger Junior High, National City Middle, City of National City, City of Chula Vista, and South San Diego. I know these PPEs are getting to our students and families that were hit hard by this pandemic. And I also wanted to send my condolences to the Reynolds family for the passing of Mr. Vincent Reynolds. He passed after a short illness with COVID. He was a National City resident his entire life. He was born in 1938, and he graduated from Sweetwater High School in 1956, from Southwestern College in 1971, and San Diego State 1974. He served in the U.S. Air Force from 1957 to 1963. Vince served on the National School District Governing Board from 1986 to 1990, and he helped bring the One Sight to National City, which provides glasses to our school children free of charge. So I wanted to send my condolences to the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Solis. Mr. Tarantino?
Yeah, thank you, President Segura. I'd like to congratulate Director of Nutrition Services, Eric Spain, on receiving an invitation to participate in the California Department of Food and Agriculture's Farm to School initiative. Director Spain will join a group of nutrition service directors and allies in determining how California can ensure that our state's vast resources of fruits and vegetables reach our students as well as underserved communities. Mr. Span is always looking for ways to help support our students and the communities that serves. I'd like to send my congratulations to him in this invitation, and I'm sure that he will represent our area. That's all I have, President Segura.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Arancibia.
Thank you, President Segura. I wanted to echo your sentiment, sending condolences to the Baza family for the passing of Larry Baza. He was actually, for the Taco Shop Poets, my poetry group, the first person that funded this, gave us a $250 grant from the Centro Cultural de la Raza. And there are many folks that are like me that were helped out and given a chance to become nationally and internationally known artists through his mentorship and guidance, both in the activist area and LGBTQ area and in the Chicano arts areas as well. So it's a real loss for me. He passed away due to COVID, and it left the community with a certain amount of shock. And I just want us to understand we're on the last leg, a last leg of this pandemic in terms of we finally got the numbers under control. Vaccinations are around the corner for many of us, and we're all looking forward to opening schools again. Let's hope that we get the vaccinations to everyone that needs it to be able to teach. And let's make sure that we keep a positive outlook, and we're trying our best. We just need to have the hope that we're going to make it the next 2-3 months to get back to school. Let's hope that we can all make it happen. Mask up. Let's stay positive about this. Oh, and one last thing, I wanted to give you all props. I'm the new person here, and what you've carried here is the stewardship of the district. And from the last report that we heard from the audits, you have to be commended, because I feel like you carried the difficult weight for the past, 9, 10 months, a year and a half of being kind of looked at all the time and wondering what happened. And in one swift move of 7 to 8 months, you managed to change the narrative. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to show up with you all and work with you all to continue to move the district in the right direction. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Adencibi. Appreciate that. I will just close with, I just like to mention, and Dr. Getty mentioned it in his update about all the focus and on vaccinations for our educators and all educators, in our schools, so that we can move forward and getting schools reopened. But I appreciate all that work and all that advocacy and our relations. Dr. Gary has a lot of relations with a lot of the electeds throughout the state. Truly pays off. Trustee Hall, she's been on a lot of calls with all the electeds as well. I've made a few. I've been traveling up to see my dad. And I missed a few of them, but I appreciate all that work. Trustee Hall, she's really on it. I just, it's very important that we do that, and hopefully that it comes to fruition, and we can get the inoculations that our educators need, so that we can open safely. And then this last week, it was last Saturday, or a week ago last Saturday, I was happy to, and Dr. Getty was there as well. The San Diego Labor Council, the San Diego Building Trades put together a food distribution, at Southwest High School. We wish Trustee Hall could have been there, but we all thought of her, and we talked about her in good terms. But they were able to distribute food to over 600 families, almost 700 families. So this need's still there, and that's very, very critical. And I thank them for all of us. Mayor Gloria was there. Congressman Juan Vargas was there. I was able to speak to him and actually talk to him about where he was when the riots happened, and that was a very interesting story. Sad, but interesting story. He'll share it with you if you ask him. Vivian, our council member from San Diego City Council, she was there, and a number of other electeds were there in support. And then the labor unions were there. The iron workers were there. IBW was there. UFCW was there. There was just a lot of help from our community partners who we have partnerships with, with our labor agreements, and as well as the teachers. I'm very proud of the relationships that we have. Sometimes people say the unions, and they say unions like it's a negative thing and a bad thing. And I've dealt with that my whole life, being a union officer for quite a long time. And, and I can tell you that I learned when I was leading a union that the best course to have, and the best thing to get things done, is to have a solid relationship with management and the unions. You need to get along. You need to communicate. And I truly seen that happen. It's happening here. Dr. Gary's leading that, and Jenny, our general counsel, Carbuccia, in terms of negotiating these agreements. And I just really appreciate that work. I really appreciate the partnership, and I really want the schools to open, but I want them to, and I'll say it, I want them to open when it's safe. And I have a daughter who's in the high school myself, and sometimes I forget she is, because she's just so good at doing it on her own, but that's not everybody. She works hard, but I know there's a lot of students are struggling, not only in our district, but in all over. And I just hearing from my wife, who's a principal, she tells me stories, and it's sad, but we just need to, get the vaccinations and open when it's safe. So that's all I have to add. And with that, we'll move to F7, correct?
Yes, this is the item where the board has the opportunity to elect up to 7 candidates to the CSBA Delegate Assembly.
Thanks for saying that. I should have said that.
That's okay, for Region 17.
Is the board, is there a motion, or does anybody have, I've looked it over myself. I mean, there's 8 people and we need to select 7, correct?
Yes.
Trustee Hall. Nope.
You're on mute, Ms. Hall.
Thank you. I would say the first 2 people and the last, I go for Kate Bishop, Leslie Bunker, Don Prefect, Lucy Ugarte, and that's the ones that I would support on this nomination.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this? If not, vote please.
Adamos?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Let's move to G1, which is a report, or actually it's a plan, the report on English Learner Master Plan.
So for this item, I'll ask Dr. Alvarez to introduce the item. Dr. Alvarez?
Good evening, Dr. Aguirre, Mr. Segura, board members. It's a pleasure to see you tonight. This evening, Ms. Maria Esther Lizarraga, our Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction, will be presenting the revised update for the English Learner Master Plan. And as you may recall, in 2017, we provided an updated plan to the district, and it really encompasses all avenues of supporting English language learners in our district. So Ms. Lizarraga will present the update, and then both of us will be available for any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez. Good evening, President Segura, board members, Superintendent Aguirre, and community members. I am here today, as Dr. Alvarez mentioned to you, to provide you an overview of the English Learner Master Plan for our district. The creation of the EL Master Plan was inspired to showcase the systems that we have and are in place to support our English learners on their journey to becoming English proficient by having academic, social, emotional, cultural, and linguistic opportunities to flourish into a community-minded citizen who have the skills to pursue their dreams. The development of the EL Master Plan started in 2015 and became a reality in 2017. It brought together a group of district and site administrators, teachers, and parents to work collaboratively to provide feedback for this plan. The goal of tonight's presentation is to provide an overview and highlights of our district's English Language Master Plan. Since the creation of the EL Master Plan in our district, the state of California has created policy and guidance to guide districts on the implementation of the California English Learner Roadmap. The roadmap is like a bridge. It begins with policy and it connects the foundation of this roadmap with the vision. The vision states English learners fully and meaningfully access and participate in 21st century education from early childhood through the grade 12 that result in their attaining high levels of English proficiency, mastery of grade level standards, and opportunities to develop proficiency in multiple languages. The mission on how to implement this plan and reach the end of the bridge is what the mission states. California schools affirm, welcome, and respond to a diverse range of EL strengths, needs, and identities. California schools prepare graduates with linguistic, academic, and social skills and competencies that they require for college career and the civic participation in global, diverse, and multilingual world, thus ensuring a thriving future for California. The California Roadmap is guided by 4 principles. Principle 1, asset-oriented and needs-responsive schools, where we acknowledge what our students bring to us. Principle 2, intellectual quality of instruction and meaningful access, where students have access to all of our curriculum and have quality instruction. Principle 3, a system conditions that supports effectiveness, where we evaluate our programs. And principle 4, alignment and articulation within and across our systems. Based on this guidance from the state, we have aligned 1 or more principles to each of the chapters of our EL master plan. Each chapter is composed of an introduction, details the policy, procedures, and options, refers to relevant ed code to ensure compliance, includes specific roles and responsibilities, charts for all districts and site staff, includes promising practices and next step sections, and also lists of related forms and documents with hyperlinks. How does an EL master plan impact students? Well, students have open access to any English language program. Students and their families have a choice to select a program that aligns to our students' goals and their students' goals. Students have access to supports through credit recovery, cohorts, and teacher supports. Students and their families are informed of the reclassification criteria and process that is aligned with the state and federal requirements. So what supports do we offer our English learners? Schools review academic progress every 6 weeks to ensure that EL students are making adequate academic progress and appropriate language development. Staff monitor EL students and utilize information from our district's EL monitoring dashboard and our English learner early warning system that determines progress of each student based on a variety of formative data and summative data. Both technical resource teachers and counselors monitor data and document student supports and mentor and/or make connections with the targeted students to re-engage them in school, increase their motivation to academically succeed, and to monitor their social emotional outlook towards school and their families. So when we share this plan, we receive public feedback, both from staff and our public, of course. Admins share the plan with their faculty, where teachers and counselors and staff provide input. Our teachers on special assignment also share the plan with their content-specific teachers. For public, we offer informational meetings and we schedule meetings with DLAC to share the plan and also gather their input. Site administrators share the plan as well with their ELECs, and again, gather this information and feedback. And with this information, we edit and make changes to our plan. Once the plan is approved, then we'll place our new approved plan on the district website. So why do we need an English Learner Master Plan? Well, it is designed to address the specific needs of each EL student in our communities that we serve. It is based in research-proven best practices, policies for improving EL outcomes. It contains a strategic selection of high-level action steps, strategies, and systems to support EL achievement at all levels. And it describes equitable educational pathways that ensure access to rigorous grade level content while students are acquiring English. Examples of the use of the English Learner Master Plan, for example, principals want to look at procedures for ELs and providing services. School counselors use the plan to look at protocols on placing students. Teachers might look at reclassification criteria to better prepare their students. Parents can find information about the different English programs that we offer and the pros and cons of each program or advantages. Community members can understand how students are identified as an EL or not, and district administrators, we can review this plan to provide professional development for our staff. And you can find we don't have the current plan yet, but there is the last year's plan posted in the state and federal programs website. Hopefully tonight our plan will be approved, so tomorrow morning we'll have our plan on the state and federal program website with the English learners. And just chapter 11, board policies and administrative related to English learners and English learner programs. Here you can find the different board policies in relationship to English learners and parents' rights and teachers and students and staff and teacher students policies. If you have any questions or comments, thank you.
Thank you. Deanne, do we have any public comments on this?
Yes, we do have one person who's requested to speak. Kathleen Cheers.
English learners are a valuable and substantial demographic in Sweetwater schools. For 12 plus years, I've attended board meetings in which a presentation such as this is reviewed by the trustees and the public. I would like to commend Ms. Lizarraga on the information and succinct format of the first attachment. Was the second attachment a copy of an boilerplate from another source? I ask because of the overlays on several pages. While this demographic of students is often referred to as important and worthy, this Board of Trustees has collectively failed during their tenure to truly address the needs of our English learners. While speeches are made and platitudes given, I'm reminded of the hamburger commercial, "Where's the beef?" Why have you failed to do your own research and discuss publicly the data which indicates Sweetwater is failing our students? Speaking of hard current data, did I overlook current Sweetwater numbers? Respectfully, I would recommend a foundation be laid which specifically presents the true numbers, the graduation rates, college bound, how many students opt out, letter grade breakdown by school site with a delineation between the middle and high school. I would also recommend the data be indicative of east side versus west side. Education is a team effort. For far too long, we have solely relied on teachers, counselors, and administrators' hard work, leaving out an important member of the team, real parent involvement, and community volunteers. What resources are available other than DAC and DLAC to individualize our outreach? Perhaps paid extra duty, which would provide teachers the opportunity to individualize the approach. It's time for Sweetwater and this board to roll up their sleeves, think outside the box, and do the work, implement the programs our EL students are deserving of. These students must be served versus used for the ADA they provide. But that is going to take a realignment of the millions you receive. Mr. Aaron Sibley, as a trustee, it is imperative one has thorough knowledge of topics presented, past and present. Public record indicates the financial reboot began in late 2018, not 6 to 7 months ago. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. There are no further speakers on this item.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board on the plan?
I have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
No, it's more not so much on the plan, but I just wanted to ask, how has COVID impacted the transitions or the assessments that have been going on, that go on with our students that are transitioning to different levels? And that's my question and a concern. I'd like to have that data somehow or another presented to the board. It doesn't have to be an open session and it can be a closed session, but or shared with us to see how that is, how COVID is impacting our English language learners.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gary, did you want to comment to that?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. Alvarez to address that question.
Thank you. Just to make sure I'm understanding the question, Dr. Arancibia, I think you're asking about the reclassification metrics and how we are ensuring that students are able to reclassify.
Right, because I mean, it would seem to me the assessment might be a little bit more difficult if students have access to internet and have, if they lack access to internet or consistent places where they can be assessed authentically.
Thank you. We will work with research and evaluation and assessment to put together a board memo regarding that.
Please.
As you know, we do our yearly LPAC, and then in spring we do our reclassification. And it's based on several metrics, including grades in English language arts, in their core subject areas, also teacher recommendation, and then of course LPAC data. We also in the past have used our end of course assessments as part of those metrics, but we'll put together a board update to ensure and present how many students were reclassified in the spring of last year, which was at a point where
No, the other thing is too, I think also, if I may make a suggestion as a professor that has to work with some of the same data, I think it's important for us to consider this longitudinally in terms of the years and their success thereafter, because I think that's one of the things. We can get snapshots of a particular year, but I think that longitudinally we have to look and see what is the success rate over 3-4 years, and in terms of going to a community college or a 4-year college, and to see what's working and what's not, because I think that informs us instead of getting a snapshot for a particular year.
No, you're absolutely correct. And in particular with our English learners, as soon as English learners are reclassified, we are still required to follow them for 4 additional years.
Right.
And so that's something that's critical to the data.
Thank you, Trustee Tarantino.
I have 2 questions. First, and I know I'm not looking for a specific answer. I'm looking like for an average. How long does it take for a student to transition out of the program into the mainstream English classes? First question.
Dr. Alvarez?
So I'll say in general theory about language acquisition to transition from.
Because it involves a lot of different factors. How long they've been in the program, when they come in the program,
all of those factors are considered, correct?
Those factors.
And because we are a secondary school district, we do receive many students, a large percentage of our students who are long-term English learners come to us as long-term English learners. And so we can work on getting you that data. Normally, in order, if someone comes in as a primary language speaker, in primary grades, it's usually 5 to 7 years to reach full proficiency. We do accelerate many students that come in as 7th graders, and even students that come in at 9th grade level, and we're able to reclassify them with some of our accelerated programs. but we'll get you the actual data.
Okay.
This evening.
And then follow up on what Dr. Adesivia mentioned. Do we have any chips with secondary institutions to do the longitudinal study in terms of how students do in post-secondary institutions? Universities throughout the United States, but maybe just in San Diego County, you can follow.
So we do have data collection through the College Clearinghouse, and that is national data, where it does demonstrate our English-only students, our English learners, and also by race and ethnicity. So it has different demographics, and it does include students that go to a community college, and then those that go on to four-year colleges, and then the graduation rates based on 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year. We do have some of that data available. And in particular with our college partners in San Diego, with UCSD, San Diego State, and Southwestern College, that data is available. As you may recall, as part of the joint governing meetings that we had with Southwestern College, that was part of the data collection in looking at the vertical articulation between Sweetwater and Southwestern, and then also adding the San Diego State component.
All right. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Hall.
Thank you. Thank you for this report and for the work you've done to get it to this point. I know it's been a few years. The process has been ongoing. So I wanted to all the team that was listed on one of your first slides, I want to thank each and every one of them for the work they're doing, and for the parents who have provided input as well. On this one slide that's titled, "What support do we offer English learners?" Under the supports, I had a question about the bullet point referrals to outside agencies. What are those agencies, and why are they being referred out to them? Do you know what bullet point I'm talking about, this one?
Yes, I'm going to have Maria Stead address that one.
Thanks.
So sometimes when students are experience trauma, our counselors refer out. Usually our counselors mentor our students when families and students are requiring extra support is when they do seek support from the outside.
It's for social emotional health, more or less, or yes. Trauma recovery. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm glad that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question. So in talking about, long-term English learners, what differentiated instruction strategies do you, the team, provide to students so that we try to not let them become long-term English language learners?
So I'll start with our 7th and 8th grade program. For our 7th and 8th graders, we do have an academic language development course specifically created by our resource teachers and our past director, that primarily addresses not only the language acquisition components, but also the social emotional trauma that Maria Stead was referring to in terms of some of those barriers that may exist for some of our students that are long-term English learners. And that's provided through Avid Excel at both the 7th and 8th grade level. And so almost all of our sites at the middle school level offer that course. And we have teachers that are specifically trained by Avid, not only in Avid methodologies, but also in the language acquisition components. At the high school level, we have similar courses for academic language development that Maria Stead will discuss a little bit further, but they're highlighting once again specific language and social emotional needs of our language learners for long-term English learners.
Just to add, our team of TOSAs, our teachers, to support our teachers in looking at differentiation. Our website has specific scaffolds for each of the content areas to provide students and teachers with the differentiation, with using graphic organizers, looking at developing vocabulary as some of the examples.
Thank you for that answer. Vice President Solis, go ahead.
Thank you, President Segura. Thank you, Dr. Alvarez and Ms. Lizarraga and Ms. Delgado for this roadmap. I saw the list of contributors is amazing, and I think it's wonderful. The only question I had was regards to student input. How are we getting? Do we get student input to help out with this roadmap?
Mr. Solis, that's a very important point. When working with this plan, I realized when I presented to our DLAC that was a component that we need to have as a goal or one of our next steps. And our plan is for next year to do some empathy interviews with our English learners to include them in the plan.
Excellent. And also, I was thinking if we can get those students that have graduated, that have moved on, maybe we can ask them of things that we can do, what things that we could have done to make things better for them, so that we can help those that are coming behind them. So that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for this report. Do we need to accept this report, Deanne? Or Dr. Getty, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, President Segura. Thank you. I think I generally don't like to speak of my own experience throughout the education process, but on this one, I just felt compelled to share some of my experience. So as a student who was born in this country of parents who did not speak English, the fact that we need to continue to pay attention to our students or our English learners is critically important. I can not only speak to that from a place of theory, I can speak to that from a place of practice. I know what it's like to be the student who was placed on a corner, given some crayons, and not receive instruction when I first started my education. Having said that, I encountered a system that eventually was supportive and great teachers that were there to support my acquisition of the English language. So I'm glad to hear that our entire community is paying attention to this important student group, and that we're truly about ensuring that all of our students have the supports they need to be able to succeed. Because I would like to believe that I'm evidence that when appropriate supports and appropriate teaching and care is delivered, students can do whatever they want, regardless of where they came from, what station they started in life. So I really appreciate this plan because it's a true roadmap for supporting students. And I don't generally share my own experience, but I just felt compelled because it's important that our students understand that our school district is here to support all of our students. So I just wanted to share that. So I'll be working with Dr. Alvarez and all of her team to ensure we focus on all of our students.
And if I can follow up with that, Dr. Aguirre, one of the things I think we have to remember is just because we have the programs is not enough. We need excellence in these programs. If it's a dual DLI program, we need excellence. If it's a transitional model, then we need excellence, because this is a large percentage of our student population, and yeah, you and I both experienced this being second language learners, and we had different experiences than the students do today. But I think the one thing that needs to be a constant with the way we talk about English language learners and transitioning and what support mechanism we have, there has to be excellence, because I think if we settle then we're doing a great disservice for our district and our students. You know, that's really I totally I feel you, and I this is something near and dear to my heart. My mother was one of the teachers in the district for 27 years, precisely focused on this issue. So I want to make sure that I sense it, and I thank you for saying that.
Thank you, Dr. Gary, for that heartfelt comments, and Dr. Arancibia. Dan, do we need to accept this or vote on this?
No, this is only a report.
Okay. All right. So if there's no other comments, we can move on to G4. That was pulled by Mr. Tarantino.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. How many schools will be in the pilot?
Dr. Alvarez?
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. Mr. Tarantino, there is an option to grow the number of schools. We're going to start with Chula Vista Middle. And the reason we're starting with Chula Vista Middle is that the data science team has already been working with Chula Vista on another project. And so they wanted to work with a school that had already been in progress in a similar project. And then we will expand from there. This MOU is based on a premise that UCSD is working to get an additional grant. And so this is the foundation for that. They'll be working on the data science projects, curriculum, but it also is contingent on an upcoming grant that will also be brought forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I'm not sure if Mr. Tarantino made a motion or not.
I'll make a motion to approve this item.
I'll second.
In a second. Vote, please.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you for the presentation.
Ms. Lizarraga, can you stop sharing your screen, please? Thank you.
And finally, we'll move to our last item, which is H2, which is an MOU between us and SRO.
We have 3 more items actually, sir.
We do. Oh yeah, we have 2. Yes, you're right. I was being. You're right. Go ahead.
H2. We have several speakers to this item. Did you want to take them first?
Yes.
The first speaker is Julia Anker.
Let me see.
Hi, I'm a teacher. My name is Julia Anker, and I'm a teacher at Montgomery High School. I am encouraging you to vote against the MOU. Research does not show that increased presence of law enforcement makes schools safer. Instead, school police officers reinforce the criminalization of young people of color, serving as a key component of the school-to-prison pipeline. Black and Latino students are more likely to be disciplined, suspended, and arrested in schools when police are present. Police assigned to school buildings often don't receive the necessary specialized training on adolescent development, racial equity, restorative justice, or strategies for de-escalation, leaving many unequipped to do their jobs without causing harm to students. Research shows that the mere presence of police officers in schools increases the likelihood that a student will be referred to law enforcement for adolescent behavior. Please vote against the MOU. We do not need cops on campus. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chris Elam.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Aguirre. So I've spoken before on this item in the previous years, but here I am yet again. It deeply concerns me that while large urban districts around the country have finally started to wake up to the deep-rooted issues of having cops on campus, our district continues to just keep renewing those contracts. After the renewed fight to remove cops from campus following the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, districts in Minneapolis, Seattle, Oakland, Denver, and Portland, among others, all moved to sever or suspend their contracts with local police departments or reduce or eliminate their own internal police forces. Just 5 days ago, LA Unified School District did the same. We have so many things on our plate right now that part of me was just going to let this go tonight, but then I read the language of the MOU and just couldn't let it pass without a comment. The very first item under SRO's role and responsibility is to provide prevention and intervention by, quote, providing a highly visible uniformed police officer presence on the campus of SUHSD. The wording of this goes with the traditional idea that a uniformed officer will work as a powerful deterrent for anyone to do anything wrong. This implies a deep misunderstanding of how many of our students view police officers in their community. It also seems to fly in the face of all the things we claim to be as a district. If we truly are a restorative district, why don't we reinvest this money into something like the school climate coaches that LA Unified School District is moving to with their new budget? Bring community members to campus as mentors rather than cops as threats. We say we're a district that cares deeply about Black lives and the lives of our undocumented students and other marginalized populations. Yet study after study has shown that many within those populations do not feel safe around law enforcement. Years ago, the idea may have been that the more students see these cops on campus, they'll get to know them and build relationships and learn that they can quote unquote trust law enforcement. That's a sweet idea, but I have yet to see any students say they trust cops now based on the SROs on campus. Having cops roaming the campus during lunch with hands on hips, just inches from their guns, does not bring a sense of peace, especially in those populations who are repeatedly targeted. This doesn't even begin to address the research on how cops on campus directly impacts the school-to-prison pipeline, as Julie just referenced. Note item 1G on the MOU, document all incidents of crime as per department regulations, meaning instead of letting things be handled in-house through a restorative justice process, get those kids started on that criminal record. We've spent $500 million on SROs this year alone, and we haven't been on campus. And now we want to spend $500,000 again next year. For what? Look at the out-of-box thinking that these other schools have done with that money. I guarantee you can get a lot more for your money by adding more adults focused on restorative justice and mentorship than adding more cops. I would ask that you do not vote on this item tonight. If you're planning to vote yes, at least pause. Postpone the vote until the next meeting and do some research over the next 2 weeks to see how other districts, including LA Unified, are redirecting their funds away from police organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Clark.
Hello, my name is Morgan Clark. I'm a teacher at Sweetwater. I am urging you not to renew our contract with Chula Vista Police Department. The agenda tonight states that, quote, the presence of proactive support of law enforcement has greatly enhanced school security, but there is no evidence to suggest that our schools are made safer by the presence of police officers. At the very best, this makes this contract a waste of $500,000 that could go towards psychologists and resource positions to directly help our students. At the worst, police and schools contribute to the school-to-prison pipeline, make our students of color feel unsafe at school, and result in an increase in punitive actions towards students. Data shows that schools with cops are more likely to refer children to law enforcement, including for nonviolent behaviors. These students are disproportionately people of color. Students as young as 6 years old have been handcuffed and arrested by police officers stationed in schools. If you haven't seen the video of that encounter, I really encourage you to look it up because it is absolutely heartbreaking. Police are not adequately trained in conflict de-escalation. They are not even required to have bachelor's degrees. Social workers or emotional counselors with master's degrees in social worker counseling will make a positive impact on our students and could even save their lives, especially once we return to campuses and begin the hard work to heal the trauma from this past year. As a teacher in our district, I have attended multiple restorative justice trainings, but restorative justice cannot happen when we invite punitive justice into our schools. Last June, when BLM was trending, you adopted a resolution committing Sweetwater to the mission of Black Lives Matter. Now that it is no longer trending, we still need to honor that promise. We cannot preach equality while continuing racist policies that can literally destroy our students' lives. Please listen to the voices of people of color, even when it's not a hashtag. Remove police from our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ramon Alvarez.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to speak on hopefully maybe tabling this item for a later date. I'm urging the school board members to research the data at Sweetwater. What is it that the students want? How do the parents feel about police officers, directly SROs? I was a former director of the Academy of Criminology and Justice at Otay Ranch High School. And in that time, I had the ability to build relationships with many officers. There's Officer Faddis, Officer Ruby Lopezing, Officer Doug Cobbaugh. Some of them were very well educated with kids, and one of them, his wife is actually a principal in our local elementary school district. So there's a lot of information in the media that can pull at our heartstrings, but what's going on with Sweetwater? And I'm urging the superintendent and others to really reach out to the community and ask the community, is this a relationship that we want to continue, or is this something that we can change? And I would love to have a seat at the table when we hire these SROs and a lot of community members, get that input to strengthen this relationship. And I know there's been a lot of problems throughout the country with policing, but we can improve that. I think we need to keep the doors open and to continue to have this dialogue and discussion, not only with our community, but with law enforcement, because they do some wonderful things with our kids. I've had a lot of the kids in my program, or not even in my program, they'll come and talk to the officer and he'll file reports on their behalf. So there's a lot of areas of need, and I think this is an item that needs to be tabled to a further date until we have the data for Sweetwater, because Chula Vista is a unique community. We're not Los Angeles, we're not Chicago, we're not Atlanta. I'd like to see what's happening in our community and how our community feels about this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Rebecca McKee.
Rebecca McKee. I am a teacher at Castle Park High School. I'm encouraging the board to vote no on the MOU for the same reasons as many others have already commented. Schools with cops are more likely to refer children to law enforcement, including for non-serious violent behaviors. Instead of figuring out how to help students who are having a difficult time using counselors or other resources, we meet those kids with force and with a police presence on campus. The presence of police in schools is fueled by a dehumanization of students of color, which suggests that there needs to be a constant surveillance of these students in schools. And there isn't much evidence indicating that police officers in schools make schools safer. What they do is increase the likelihood that Black and brown children are going to be involved in the legal system early and often. At the end of the day, what I hear from students is that they are afraid of cops on campus, and they do not view cops on campus as a resource for them. Black and brown students know all too well that cops violently assaulting protesters are the same ones that are placed in our school hallways, assaulting and racially profiling our students. So I encourage the board to vote no on the MOU if it's voted on at all.
Thank you. There are no further comments on this item.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the board?
I have questions. What is the need right now? I mean, what is the rationale for having this right now? Are we pressed to be able to do this immediately? I didn't see that in terms of the text that was written.
Thank you, Trustee Arancibia. I'll ask Dr. Moore to provide a response. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, board, and good evening. And I thank you for putting this item up for discussion. Regarding the Dr. Arancibia, to answer your question regarding what's pressing, we've had MOUs, particularly with Chula Vista PD and National City PD for several years. I think one of the speakers indicated that. And this year it isn't an exception. I think one of the problematic aspects of this particular contract is it began in August, and we are in February, and we're bringing this contract forward for the 2020-2021 school year, as well as next year. So minimally, there's invoices that we need to address. And from this year, there is a portion of this particular contract that is pertinent to next year, and that was done really in an effort to control costs and not have a situation like we're having this year, where we've got a contract that's already started and services being provided, but bringing to the board for ratification at such a late date. And so that, I think, answers the questions regarding why this is coming forward at this time.
Yeah, no, I mean, so, but I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have a bill due. We need to pay, make good on that bill. And, but next year, I know there's a savings plan associated. Might I encourage us to rethink that we, thinking about issues of equity and with regards to that, perhaps scaling down the services that we need for the future as a motion to be able to accept paying our bills for today, for the current year, right? But looking towards the future as maybe it's weaning ourselves off or reducing it. I do believe that there is a room for, and there's a necessity for officers when there are issues of child endangerment, child abuse, spousal abuse, that we will need something like that, something there to be able to help out, to be able to protect students. I'm just seeing is how can we work towards a place where we don't necessarily need SROs that much, and I'm just thinking that this might be a way of kind of getting us where we need to go for this immediate issue of the bill being needing to be paid, and then in the future kind of imagine a world where we might have alternatives to that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yes, Trustee Arancibia, that's something that we can consider moving forward. I also think it's important to note that this MOU does reflect a reduction in one SRO from 4 to 3, so there is already kind of a reduction that's contemplated, but we can continue to move that forward again as we progress.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. Thank you, Dr. Arancibia. Trustee Hall.
Yes, I thank you, President Segura, and I appreciate Dr. Aguirre, your comments, and Dr. Moore, your comments, and Dr. Arancibia, your questions. For me, this is purely a case of, I hear myself talking now, I don't know why, but this is purely a case of equity. I don't see where this is going to benefit a number of schools in our district, and it's $1 million. $1 million that I would rather see put into mental health resources, counseling. There's so many, I mean, especially in my area, none of my schools will be served by this. None. And I appreciate, Dr. Moore, you've had to catch the ball as it was falling, because it wasn't done in a timely manner when this MOU ran out. But it seems to me, and I know that you and Dr. Aguirre have assured me that you are going to be watching, and you have already communicated with all staff that these types of, whether it's a purchasing contract or memorandum of understanding, they need to be done before they run out, or the services shouldn't be provided. They shouldn't be ongoing. The expectation should not be there that, oh, it's just business as usual, because as you've seen on our report, we have to move this district and keep it on the path of recovery fiscally, but also the fact that none of the schools in my area, which are very low, they're in high-risk areas. You know, I mean, I don't want to throw out a bunch of terms that would denigrate those schools, but they won't get services out of this, and yet the resources are going to be spent on you know, $1 million, which to me, I can't vote for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Trustee Solis, did you want to comment to that, Dr. Getty? I'm not sure, or Dr.
Yeah, I understand Trustee Hall's comment and where that's kind of the context we're working with. I think some of what makes this item challenging is that many times there's support that is provided from SROs that isn't necessarily captured neatly, where they do indeed help provide support to our district for different reasons, whether they be threats that are called in, just providing support to school sites, including during athletic events. There's a lot that goes into the types of support. So as we move forward, I think having a perspective around the support provider across the district, regardless of municipality and regardless of the agency, because we do work with different agencies, I think it's important to look at that information. Again, in terms of the work that's happened up to this point, I think it's difficult to kind of turn the clock back in terms of the services that were provided. But I do think we're in February of this fiscal year and services have been provided. So, but moving forward, there can be a more close examination of both the pros and the cons. And Dr. Moore, perhaps you can talk briefly about some of the community forums that have been included in this MOU that can be done in partnership to help build that kind of understanding.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Geary. And I think given my previous presentation at our last board meeting regarding an update on the Black Lives Matter resolution, this idea of police and our engagement with law enforcement is something that I personally struggle with, and it's something that I think, again, personally wear both hats on. Having been in a district that had a school police department for the entire district, and then also now in this district where we are looking at MOUs with individual municipal agencies, I can see a lot of different sides of this issue. As it pertains to the contract that we have in front of us, one of the pieces that we were adamant in making sure was included was a responsiveness to our communities, and to ensure that in a joint fashion we held student and community forums. A lot of the speakers that spoke previously talked about students not being comfortable or feeling as though law enforcement, particularly uniformed law enforcement, is unapproachable. And that is one piece of the contract that we're looking to address, and having community forums wherein some high officials, and with Chula Vista, we're working directly with Captain Collum, but having some officials from law enforcement agencies come and address these issues with students, with families and communities, to be as responsive as possible. Another piece that we've been dealing with is, and there was a press release just recently, was the Handle with Care effort spearheaded by the District Attorney's Office. Chula Vista PD has participated in that, wherein and when there's a contact with a student aged with a student in the community, that they make a contact with our schools, and to begin some of these partnerships. And lastly, what I'll say to this is that the SROs, as I'm to understand it, and the relationship is not solely about the presence on campus, but it's also responding to various amounts of crimes that occur in and around our campus, including burglaries, thefts, vandalisms, and to as well as issues and concerns involving adults on and around our campus. So while I think there may be a lot of attention directed at the idea of the presence of a uniformed officer on campuses, these folks, there's 3 officers that are part of this contract. serving, about 2/3 of the campuses in our district, about 26,000 students. And so in the schools that are in the Chula Vista service area. So these folks aren't stationed, if you will, on campuses. They are responsive to the needs and security concerns that would be present on our campuses, and that's their role in the law enforcement community. And so, again, this is certainly an issue that has multiple facets to it, and I agree. As a board and district leadership, these are things that we need to contemplate and consider when approving and reviewing these types of arrangements with our law enforcement agencies.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. President Solis, you had your hand up. Do you have a question, sir?
Oh, well, yeah, I did, but Dr. Moore, he pretty much answered it with regards to the community input and just what other issues do these officers respond to? Is it just a student? So thank you for answering that. That was going to be my question. Thank you. Trustee Tarantino?
Thank you, President Segura. Yes, I understand the urgency of ratifying the MOU for this year, which we've already heard. But I think our speakers bring up a good point in terms of perhaps, well, first of all, do we really have a handle on what SROs do? And I would recommend that we table the MOU for the 21-22 school year, have the SRO come and make a presentation to the board exactly what they do, because my understanding is that they have special training. It's just not someone from the rank and file. They have to go through special training, and exactly, I don't know what that special training is. I'm assuming it's sensitivity training and all kinds of other things. And I think that would give us time to survey our community. What I think Mr. Almadez brought up a very good point. What does our community want? I mean, do they want police on campus? Do they value the SROs? So I would make a motion, if no one else is going to, if no one else has any questions, to accept the MOU for the 2021 school year and table the MOU for the 21-22 school year until we can have more information and input from the community as well as the SROs themselves.
And Frank, I just want to be clear that also has to happen before the beginning of the next fiscal year. Just want to be really clear, because if we're going to, we have what, 4 months to be able to get that done. And I want us to be realistic, and even in that approach, we can reapproach it and then discuss it at that point as well. Does that make sense? So I'm okay with the motion, but I just want to be clear that also means that our timeline is 4 months to be able to actually get this understood for this following year.
Yes, I'm well aware that it has to be done before July. Absolutely, it has to be done before July. So I agree with what Mrs. Hall said, that we can no longer keep ratifying contracts. They have to come before the board before the termination date, so like that we can have a discussion. So that's my
if I may, Trustee Tarantino, I hear that point. I'm definitely going to work on that. In terms of the contract coming forward, I do believe our general counsel did want to chime in regarding this particular contract.
Okay. Jenny, before you speak, I wanted to say something here too as well. So my questions were right along the line of everybody else. I was kind of wanted to know so we're kind of stuck with where we are and owing for this year's service, although I don't know what we're getting out of it. Is kind of the question I have, is what are we getting out of that $500,000 that we gave them? I mean, what service have we received? I know we're on the hook for it, but I just like to know what we got out of that. And it's a very good point in terms of what we are to get out of it. And I know we've had this discussion over the years where this is not the first year we've had this discussion, but quite honestly, we had pushback from leadership last time this came around. And it kind of was just like, it's going to happen, and it passed. And I believe I voted no on it. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to remember. But I've been wanting change in this for a while, and I look forward to some sort of change and spending those resources elsewhere. And then other question I have is, so if we don't give this agency $500,000, they won't respond to calls to our schools? That's the question I have.
So they would respond. It's the related services and supports that would probably no longer be here. As in, when there's a proactive response, when there's some type of threat to a campus, those kind of things might be a different issue. But if there's a service call, let's say like a 911 call, they must respond.
Okay, it just seems like, I don't know if I'm trying to look at this like, say, I'm a homeowner, I pay taxes, and that pays for my police service. Is this like the same thing? Is like a tax that our district's paying so that we get service? Or that's what I'm trying to understand here. Just it seems that, maybe that's how they get paid and for that service, and quite honestly, that's important, but in regards to them being on campus and I could speak to that as well. I've never felt comfortable around, law enforcement. And quite honestly, I guess because I'm a dark guy, quite honestly, I have that feeling where I think, I haven't done anything, but I just have that feeling. I have a bad feeling about that. I could relate to how a lot of the students in my area, would have that same experience. And I'm not trying to say all law enforcements are bad at. But I just, that's just my observation. I've always felt that way, whether it's at school or in a store or somewhere. I always just felt that, somebody's looking at me. But anyway, so that's just kind of where I'm at with it. And I think it's a good idea. I think we're stuck with what this has been brought to us. And I know it's not your gentleman's fault that it wasn't brought for earlier. It should have been brought back a long time ago. I guess we have to pay this bill, but I don't want to, if we're trying to save money going forward, I would rather just try to figure out how we're going to move forward with this going forward after this year is done. And go ahead, Doctor. You're a doctor too, Dr. Carbucci.
Thank you. I won't, if either Dr. Aguirre or Dr. Moore want to speak to the substance, I was only popping up to speak to the legality of the motion that Mr. Tarantino was passing and to advise potentially on how to phrase it. Because the intent is to ensure that we can do a 1-year MOU, but what was uploaded is a 2-year MOU. I would ask that the motion be something similar to authorize staff to negotiate a 1-year memorandum of understanding with the Chula Vista Police Department and authorize staff to execute that agreement. It will be a simple modification to take out the term, but because you have a 2-year in front of you, as you will for National City PD as well, I think that's the key point to allow you to pay the bill that is sitting in front of you at this time.
I move as amended and stated by Ms. Carbuccio.
Tarantino had made the motion. Need to amend it.
I would say that I would consider Ms. Carbuccia's statement as a friendly amendment.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion or not? Let's vote.
Yes.
Hall?
No.
Sweetwater?
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
Okay. We need to take a break. We have 2 items left. Okay, let's take a break. What time is it?
8:56.
So how about at 9:10? We got. All right.
Okay.
9:10.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be right back.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Let's move to M2, pulled by the public.
Yes, I have one speaker. Kathleen Cheers.
If ever there was a clear indicator of a board failure, Mr. Aaron Sibley not included, it is the Hilltop Field fiasco. How many times did I stand before you and show you facts of what was wrong with the Hilltop High School track and field contractor and bid? I don't have enough fingers and toes. Here we are 7 years later, still pouring money into this project. I spoke with the initial approval in July of 2014. If you want a proper audit on expenditures, this should be it. But that would never happen because the story would expose the true failure of bond accountability. Please do not receive my comments as an affront to Ms. Quirk, as she was not here at the time. She has been challenged with cleanup of this major failure. Can someone, anyone, be transparent enough to share the truth? What is the ongoing issue? How many more bond dollars will be spent attempting to correct the catastrophic failures of this project? Transparency, you often reference it. Respectfully, I am 71 years old. I would like to see this project completed with a red stamp before I die. I am respectfully asking for an answer to the questions: how much more bond money? How much longer? What is the issue? Ms. Hall, Dr. Moore, your attention to bringing MOUs forward in a timely manner is most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers to this item.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions or comments on this item? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Vice President Solis, go ahead.
Thank you, President Segura. Yeah, just to make sure that we get it out there. Like, what has gone on with this project? What's the holdup, and why the change orders?
Thank you, Trustee Solis. I'll ask Ms. Quirk to respond to that question.
Good evening. Thank you. So this is not actually a change order. We're actually looking to close this project. The end is indeed in sight. When the original design occurred, what was not addressed was connections to the existing storm drain system. And so, unfortunately, when we had the big torrential rain event about 2 years ago in the fall, the field encountered a significant amount of water, which it maintained and held for days. And then there were some domino implications from that. So we are putting together a very, very small package of work. And it's going to be about $300,000 is about what we're forecasting to get us all the way through the other side. And we're having to go in and open up and connect and put in new access points to existing storm drain systems. It's not ideal, but that is what needs to happen to remediate and to get the field to drain properly so we can actually rubber stamp this baby and be done with it. So we are actively putting that project together right now, and I would anticipate end of March at the latest, we'll see that being advertised for that work to be completed so we can be turning the field back over to athletes, in July heading into the 21-22 athletic season.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it, Ms. Quirk. Thank you for all your work.
Yep.
And with that, I'll move to approve if there's no other comments.
I don't.
I'll second it.
Motion and seconded. Vote, please.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. N4. Pulled by the public. Thank you.
Yes, I have one speaker, William Afflett.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to let the board know that the vendor that you're moving forward with is not the low vendor and the low bid vendor, and the low bid vendor is a couple of $100,000 cheaper than this vendor. And that's all I have.
Thank you. There are no further comments on this item.
Trustee Hall?
Yes, since I hadn't heard that, I'd like to see if Dr. Gary has staff to respond.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. I will ask either Dr. Salkeld or Mr. De La Calzada to provide a response to that comment.
So Dr. Aguirre, thank you, and Trustee Hall. I know that working with our purchasing department, there is the process in terms of reviewing the bid proposals. I can certainly follow up with them. I think the supporting documentation, I'm pulling that up right now, reflects that.
The summary
but I'm
says
not sure
it is the lowest bid. So is the purchasing manager not available now?
He's not on this call on the.
Can we ask Mr. De La Calzada, David, can you please speak to the comment?
Yes, Dr. Aguirre. I'm not aware of the specific bid from the gentleman that made that comment. So I would have to research that further. But as this particular board item reads, the lowest responsive bidder did respond to this bid, and we went through and evaluated and scored the products accordingly. And so, and in terms of matching the bid, if a bidder did not follow instructions on how to satisfactorily reply to each of the questions and items, then we would have scored that an inappropriate response to that. But the summary that the lowest responsive bidder did meet the district's bid terms was AAA Network Solutions. As far as the difference, I would have to go back and review the bid documents that were submitted. And that's the extent of the information that I have at this time.
And Dr. Geary, if I could add to that too, I did have a communication here sent from the purchasing manager. The lowest.
Dr. Salkeld, we kind of lost your audio.
So I did receive a message here from the purchasing manager that the lowest bid did not meet the pre-qualification for the $1 million amount. There is a criteria that was not met.
So what you're saying is it was not a responsive bid?
It was not responsive, correct.
Thank you.
So they were deemed unresponsive?
Correct.
Can I follow up with a question? And you can provide this in a Friday update, Dr. Aguirre, but what does it mean, unresponsive bid, so that we're clear on that and the public is clear, because that will be a document that they will see. But if you have that information now and you can share it verbally, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Trustee Hall, generally speaking, when a bid is put on the street, when it is issued by a public agency, there are a specific set of criteria that must be met in order for the bid response to be considered responsive. So when one of the criteria that is identified in that bid is not met, then that is considered non-responsive. I'm speaking generally, as I don't have the specifics to this particular bid, since it was processed through the IT department.
You know, what's interesting to me is today I just happened to be looking at all the different departments under and checking for org chart information, and I came across purchasing, and they have a mission statement out there which outlines what they do and how they adhere to the guidance of, I would assume it's their professional standards, right, when they do their work. So I was impressed by that mission statement, and I appreciate that. And because of that, I feel that they wouldn't be putting forward a board item without having done their due diligence in alliance with the standards that they that their professional community supports. So I would put forward a motion to approve this item.
There's a motion. If there's not a second, I'll second it. So moved and seconded. Any more discussion on this? If not, let's vote, please.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, that concludes our meeting. Correct, Ann? I say
Yes.
that I'm wrong. So, all right, thank you for the conversation and all the good work, and we'll see you Friday.
Good night.